Up and down the country, that was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello, very nice to see you. 6 o'clock, Tuesday, 23rd of April.
Yes, St George's Day. Please appreciate the outfit this morning in tribute to St George's Day. You are very welcome to breakfast. You are joining Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
And happy St George's Day. The Rwanda bill passes through Parliament. The historic far-reaching legislation set to become law after 8 hours of debate last night. So, when will the flights take off?
And a happy St George's Day to you all. We'll be looking at the meaning and the celebrations behind England's patron saint throughout the show.
The President, the porn star and the payments. Donald Trump's hush money trial against Stormy Daniels has begun with allegations he tried to corrupt the 2016 election.
And in the sport this morning, Nottingham Forest still seem to think the world's against them and now want the audio of the contentious refereeing decisions released. Leeds United back in the automatic promotion places to head back to the Premier League, and a 4-time world champion, him, considers retirement.
Morning. Whilst it is the middle of spring, it's not necessarily going to feel it, with a bit of a cool feel for some of us and a bit of rain at times too. I'll have more details coming up.
So after 5 months of deadlock, the Rwanda bill has finally passed through Parliament. It's poised to become law after peers ended their standoff over the controversial policy.
Well, the showdown comes after the Prime Minister declared that enough is enough and said MPs and peers will sit through the night to get the bill passed.
So it now designates Rwanda as a safe country and will allow the government to deport asylum seekers to there.
Let's get some analysis this morning from the political commentator Benedict Spence, who joins us in the studio. Good morning to you, Benedict. It was a late night, perhaps not as late as some people feared it might be. A slog, nevertheless, for the government. What happens now? Are we going to see these flights taking off?
Well, I suppose that's the key thing. This is not a straightforward case of the government's passing this law and everything's hunky-dory and the flights can just take off. There will be legal challenges. We've seen that before. We saw that initially when all the way back when Priti Patel first floated this policy and there were talks about getting flights off the ground. Actually, there's been legal challenge after legal challenge, including, of course, the Supreme Court ruling the policy unlawful. So there is still, I think, a little bit of way to go. Rishi Sunak himself said that the other day. He said that there's yesterday, between 10 to 12 weeks, he anticipates, until they expect flights to get off the ground. So he will miss his spring deadline unless he's also going to pass a law to change when spring is. But nonetheless, this is movement of a sort. This has been sort of struck by deadlock for so long. It has become emblematic of the government's inability to pass key legislation. So I think it will be a relief to everybody that they have actually managed to get something past the House of Lords.
So as it stands, Benedict, we are ready to go. Rwanda's ready to receive, yes?
Well, we're ready to go in the sense that we obviously have the people that we want to send, but we do not necessarily have the carriers yet. This is going to be the next issue, is getting flights on a regular basis and getting people to agree to actually take people. And the government obviously has decided it doesn't want to purchase planes of its own for this purpose. It wants to use commercially available services. That's going to be a bit tricky because actually nobody really wants to be tarred with the brush of a very controversial immigration policy such as this that has caused quite so much concern. You know, the Labour Party referring to it as an expensive gimmick. In various corners, people have called it an abuse of human rights, racist, what have you. So that's the sort of thing that actually an airline might not want to associate itself with. But I suppose if the money is right and...
Well, I tell you, I wouldn't like to be on a scheduled airline going to Rwanda with goodness knows how many migrants on it. What sort of security would it take? Say they decided on board, you know what, we don't want to go here.
From a personal perspective, this has always been something that I've not quite understood. Other countries do have specialised aircraft to deport people. I don't know why, for some reason, we've decided that this isn't a thing that we want to pursue, but that is the choice that they've decided to make. It, I suppose, has played into one of the many things that has played into this policy being held up, has been that difficulty. Rishi Sunak will live or die by this, ultimately.
Yeah, but the United Nations have said that the flight carriers actually stand the chance of being sued for breach of international law if they do take these flights.
Just use military aircraft.
So there's a dilemma for them. And we had Nigel Farage yesterday saying, mark my words, we will not see a single person being exported, or extradited. Not even the correct word. What's the word I'm looking for this morning?
We don't even know.
Deported. Yes. There we go. Sorry, it's taking me a while this morning. It's very early. To Rwanda, because even though there is this sort of amendment of Section 39 that ministers are allowed to ignore it, there's now human rights legislation that has been built into our legal system here, which means there'll just be legal challenge after legal challenge.
As I say, it's going to be a long old slog, and I think actually even Rishi Sunak's 10 to 12-week timeline is a little ambitious. I think that that's probably the best-case scenario, after which time we will have already had the local elections. Who knows if Rishi Sunak will even be in a position to be pushing forward this policy. A lot of people seem to think that if it doesn't go very well for him, there may even be a leadership challenge.
I must admit, I'm thinking the way Nigel Farage thinks. I mean, you just cannot imagine this going ahead now. What about our friends at the European Court of Human Rights? Will they be rearing up about this?
I think that they'll be looking at this very carefully, obviously, but there's also a lot of interest from other countries who have floated the idea of pursuing similar policies, Denmark being one. So it's not simply a case of little old Britain deciding that it's going to take on the ECHR alone, should that come to it. There are going to be other interested parties who have had major issues with the massive influxes of illegal migrants claiming refuge there that they can't do anything with. I mean, in Denmark's case, it decided it was going to recognise parts of Syria safe, even though it doesn't recognise the Syrian government, in a desperate bid to try to send people back. So there are all kinds of legal obstacles that lots of countries in Europe are facing. So whilst there are, as you say, legal mechanisms against this, I think there is an increasing sort of fervour and increasing mood for some solution to be found, because this isn't sustainable.
And even Labour have talked about offshoring, haven't they, in some way? And we've got Yvette Cooper on the programme, the Shadow Home Secretary, a little bit later on. We can ask her whether they'd be jettisoning this legislation as soon as they get in, or whether or not, if it works as a deterrent, if the flights do go off, they might actually decide, maybe we will keep it. It'll be interesting how she plays it this morning.
I mean, she was, in fact, the one, I think, yesterday who described it as an expensive gimmick. And I suppose...
£500 million for a scheme that will only cover 1% of asylum seekers, she said.
Yes, which is very much a query that I and a lot of other people have. But I suppose the alternative is what? I would imagine a much more expensive scheme. What, are you going to build permanent detention centres in the UK? Are you going to purchase those UK government flights to send people? There are no cheap options to solving this. As much as people say, just invest in speeding up processing people, that doesn't necessarily solve it if you're just saying approve, approve, or denied, but we have no way of getting rid of you.
Meanwhile, we've got the Home Secretary visiting Italy this week to see if they can stem the flow of migrants at source. Yeah, how do you think he'll get on?
Not well. Not well. The Italian government, Giorgia Meloni, who has been sort of, pilloried across Europe as being this sort of far-right firebrand, has summarily failed to stem the tide of migrants into Italy in the first place. In fact, a lot of the electorate in Italy consider her now not right-wing enough, not hardline enough. The problem is that in Italy in particular, they don't necessarily have the resources to stem people from coming across the Mediterranean in the numbers that they are. To do that, you would have to have a lot more control in Tripoli, in Libya. You'd actually have to probably have boots on the ground there, and nobody wants to do that. The Italian government has been able to strike up a unique arrangement with Albania, but that's because they have a unique relationship. And it's not actually in Italy's interests once migrants land there to keep them there. It's also not in the interests of the migrants themselves. There's a reason that Italy is having a demographic crisis far worse than we have. Young people leave because there are no jobs. The same reason happens when migrants get to Italy and they see that there are no jobs, so they move north. And Italy does not want to keep a hold of these people. Why would it?
Just a final thought. I always think it's worth remembering what a small percentage of net migration these illegal crossings are. I think it was 30,000 last year, with 750,000 people coming into this country, most of those legally. I think the figure 672,000 of those, 634,000 of those were students that the government have said, come on in. And, all this legislation for 30,000, but thousands and thousands of these people coming in and never leaving.
I think that's the great big smoke and mirrors about all of this, is that the government has made a big song and dance about illegal migration, which, let's be clear, you cannot take yourself seriously as a government if you can't police your own borders. But yes, actually, the pressures that are being put on the system, on services, on the economy, is not from illegal migrants. It's very much from legal migration.
Yeah, the size of a city of Glasgow every year.
Yes, you can't sustain that if you don't build a city the size of Glasgow every year with all of its accompanying infrastructure, and obviously we're not doing that.
Benedict, appreciate your thoughts. Thank you very much indeed. Benedict Spence there. So what do you think? We want your views this morning. Get in touch with us. The Rwanda flights, will they take off? Will they be successful? What do you think about using scheduled aircraft to carry the migrants to Rwanda? And would you buy a seat on board a plane like that? gbnews.com/your say. Please have it.
Now, of course, it is April the 23rd. That means it is St George's Day, and communities across the country are gathering to celebrate England's patron saint.
Well, red crosses are flying against white backgrounds. Knights are dusting off their chainmail, yet some are asking, who is St George and why should you celebrate him?
Well, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has the story.
Come rain or shine, Colin from Colton in Nottingham will celebrate St George's Day. He's been decorating his home with the St George's Cross for 30 years.
It matters because 23rd of April is St George's Day and we're being forgotten about. And we've got to show our identity and show our patriotism.
In the city centre, size matters. England's biggest flag covers Nottingham's council house. It appears every year. Many welcome it, some are indifferent.
I think it's amazing. I do. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's proud for something in our country.
I think it's really good to see it up there. It's good to see a celebration of England, the country.
It's a flag.
Yeah, don't
I
really.
didn't even realise it was there, if I'm honest with you.
The red cross against white is St George's emblem and the nation's flag. St George has been celebrated as England's patron saint since the 14th century. But long before English knights wore the red cross over their armour while riding into battle, his story was being told in other parts of the world. Legend states that George was a dragon-slaying knight. History traces him to modern-day Turkey, a Roman soldier who died defending Christianity. In London, the Royal Society of St George, a patriotic but non-political group, paraded with hundreds of cadets at the weekend. Nick Dutt is chairman.
A lot of our fundamental beliefs and things that we hold dear are being undermined. So I think it's important we come together and celebrate him as a unifying factor.
Here at the Cenotaph, England's fallen heroes are honoured alongside the patron saint. Laying a wreath ahead of the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings, D-Day veteran Henry Rice, a proud Englishman aged 98.
We were taught all this. We were so proud just to be English. St George, yeah, he's a great guy, isn't he?
Patriotism is sometimes criticised. English history isn't perfect, but a community of all cultures can cherish St George. Back in Carlton, Colin's raising a different flag with a traditional Anglo-Saxon dragon.
Happy St George's Day! Have a great day!
Will Hollis, GB News in Nottingham.
Well, are you going to have a great day? Let us know what you're doing to commemorate and mark St George's Day. Joining us now, royal historian and columnist Martin Whittock. Martin, just the bit I don't understand is St George never actually set foot in England. So how does he then become the patron saint of England?
That's a very good question. The original George, according to tradition, was a Cappadocian Greek who lived in what is now central Turkey. There was no Turkey at the time, completely different. It was a Greek-speaking area, a Cappadocian Greek who was martyred for his faith, according to tradition, under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, and according to tradition, martyred in what we'd now call central Israel. In an 11th century source, he's then given the idea of the role of fighting a dragon, but in Libya. So you've got what is now Turkey, you've got what is now Israel, you've got what is now Libya. What's going on here? He became a very, very popular military saint because he was a Roman soldier and because he died for his faith. And it particularly took off from the 11th and 12th century onwards, following the Crusades, this idea of martial Christianity in the early medieval period. He's then, in 1222, he's given his first role as having an official day set aside for him in this country, and he's then picked up again by warrior kings, Edward III and Henry V, in the 14th and 15th century. But his roots go back to this quite extraordinary story of martyrdom in the late Roman Empire. But he caught people's imagination. He's patron saint in Georgia, in the Caucasus, of Moscow in Russia, of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and of course of England. So he is internationally popular as this heroic soldier who died for his faith. But as you say, a quite extraordinary route that got to that point in 1222 when English kings began to think he is our patron saint of this country. Before that, the patron saint was much more inclined to be Edward the Confessor, who was a late Anglo-Saxon king. But he did not have a particular reputation as a warrior, and so he gets replaced by George from the 13th century onwards. And a spoiler alert, of course, because St Andrew never got to Scotland either. So in distinction to the Welsh St David and the Irish St Patrick, who were all associated with their countries, St George and St Andrew didn't actually get to the countries which celebrate them.
Okay. So do you think that might be part of the reason then that we don't embrace our National Day in the same way as, say, our Irish counterparts? Or do you think it is more to do with, as some people claim, that the St George's flag has been claimed by political parties, football fans? You know, a lot of people sort of shy away from it now.
I think it's due to a cocktail of reasons. Until the Reformation in the 16th century, he was incredibly popular, incredibly popular. There were St. George's Day ridings when people went out on horseback, dressed up as St. George, a huge amount of stuff going on. And then he crashed and burned in 1547, 1548 during the Protestant Reformation because he was a saint and Catholic saints were out. He then comes back a bit under Queen Elizabeth, but not very big at all. And he never really comes back into favour again until the 19th century, when suddenly there's a burst of interest in St. George. He hits a peak again in the 1930s, and after the Second World War, he just kind of fizzles out again. And I think part of the problem is that he isn't actually directly associated with the country, you know, as somebody who actually was here. I think that's part of it. I think it's also because people feel, or have felt, that he's been kind of annexed by a particular part of the political spectrum, though that shouldn't stop him being celebrated by everybody. And I think it also is because over the years, English people have not felt under pressure in the UK in the way in which at times maybe Scots, Irish and Welsh people have, who've kind of rallied around their saint. But he's an ideal saint for a complicated, multicultural country. Cappadocian Greek, executed in the Middle East, whose legend then takes him to North Africa. Well, what's not to like about somebody that speaks about all of this and then dies for his Christian faith? I think he does speak to a complicated, multicultural country.
Well, there we go, a diversity candidate, if ever there was one. I'm not sure if that will increase his popularity or not. Martin Whittock, royal historian and columnist, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Martin.
Lots of you getting in touch on gbnews.com/you'll say this morning. John Andrews, happy St. George's Day. Stuart Mack, happy St. George's Day. Be proud. Have a great day. Lots of people saying how they'll be celebrating, buying red roses just as soon as the florists open. People saying that they've got their flags flying. And we should point out, Stephen and Ellie are out and about today for us on GB News at a St. George's Day parade.
Where is that? Dartford. They're in Dartford, so look forward to seeing them live from there shortly. In other news, the Prime Minister today is set to visit Germany, where he will announce a £500 million aid package, a military aid package to Ukraine. It's the largest provision of munitions so far. Some 400 vehicles, 60 boats, 1,600 strike and air defence missiles and 4 million rounds of ammunition in the package.
A former parliamentary researcher and another man have been charged with spying for China after an investigation by counter-terrorism police. 29-year-old Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, who's 32, have been charged under the Official Secrets Act, and both will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Friday. The Met Police say the allegations are extremely serious.
Children as young as 3 coerced into sexual abuse acts online, according to a report by the Internet Watchdog Foundation. The organisation said opportunistic internet predators were directing children remotely and often recording them without their knowledge.
The miserable condition of our roads has been revealed again. New data from the RAC has vehicle breakdowns risen by 9% last year due to potholes. That is despite the government promising over £8 billion in extra funding to fix potholes over the next decade. It's estimated the cost of bringing pothole-plagued local roads in England and Wales up to scratch has been tabled at £16.3 billion.
Day 2 of Donald Trump in court in New York is the second day of what's been called one of the most high-profile criminal cases in American history.
Yes, the court's already heard prosecutors claim that the former president orchestrated a criminal conspiracy to corrupt the 2016 election and that his alleged cover-up of a hush money payment to a porn star did break the law.
OK, let's now go to former Nevada Republican Party Chairwoman Amy Tarkanian on this. Amy, very nice to see you again. Amy,
nice to be here.
Yeah, well, what I didn't realise was he's got to turn up in court every day, and he makes a point of the politicisation of this, because when he's in court, he's not on the campaign trail for the election. Any sympathy with him on that front?
No, not at all. Because of the other scenarios that he's also having to deal with. Those are not criminal cases, those are civil cases. And he still made the decision, even though it wasn't mandatory for him to show up occasionally. And I think he benefited from that, and he knows that. Every time he showed up, he was able to gain sympathy from his base and actually capitalize from sending out mass fundraising emails on a regular basis. So, he still has some free time where he can go campaign. I know that he attempted to host a rally over the weekend in, I believe, North Carolina, but due to bad weather, he had to back out. But he's still campaigning. You better believe it. And even though he has a gag order, which he has a tough time following, he, from what I understand, behaved today inside the courtroom. But as soon as he stepped outside the courtroom, he had addressed the media and continued to open his mouth and complain once again.
I mean, think of the savings to his campaign funds. Instead of having to put up these expensive rallies, he just goes to court, sits in the same chair every day for week after week, and has wall-to-wall coverage. So, it's got to be a win for him in that respect. Can you just explain to us, because a lot of this, and Eamonn and I have talked about this in the past, if it was happening in Britain, it just wouldn't be happening in Britain, put it that way. But can you explain the role of these catch-and-kill defences? Now, this all comes down to stories that could perhaps ruin his reputation. Trump is arguing it's normal to try and catch stories like this in relation to, say, this porn star. He wanted to protect his family, he wanted to protect his reputation, but the prosecution is saying actually that was about him not being damaged on the electoral trail. How normal are these catch-and-kill stories for politicians in the United States? Have you encountered them? Because you're an experienced politician.
No, I have not experienced them. I will say, though, that there are, sometimes members of the media who do try to dig up some dirt or to try to create controversy when there is none. That's pretty normal. But the catch and kill scenario today, the prosecution laid out the fact that this certain case was abnormal, and you actually had the former CEO and publisher of the National Enquirer, who was involved in this catch and kill scheme, as a witness today. And the fact that they said that, it's only the cover that matters. It's not necessarily the stories on the inside. And then if you look at every cover during that time leading up to the election, it's trashing his opponent, Hillary Clinton. It's putting him on a pedestal. And if you look at the amounts, and I believe that they displayed the amounts that were actually given to the doorman who claimed that the president had an illegitimate child, which we now know was a lie, but he was still paid hush money and given an NDA to sign, along with former Playmate model Karen McDougal, who was paid $150,000. And from what I understand, this was triple, if not more, the amount of what a regular scenario would actually pay out in such a case. And so that's where the prosecution is going to lay out this hard evidence of the pattern that unfolded, because there is the line of credit that Michael Cohen took out on his home in order to pay back Stormy Daniels. There is the ledger, the accounting books that shows that they were claiming that it had to do with, law work, and that's not the case. There's also now another former executive of President Trump who took copious notes, from what I understand, and his name was Alan Weisselberg, and he's claiming that the way that they decided to pay Michael Cohen his reimbursement, they actually moved it, bumped it up from $130,000 to $420,000, and put it in the ledger under all different kinds of categories to even evade taxes. So, there's hard evidence, and I think he's going to find himself in a lot of hot water.
Amy Turkanian, thank you. Always good to hear from you and get your views. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Adrian Porter's emailed in. He's a GB News member. If Trump's found guilty, he shouldn't be allowed to stand as president and shouldn't be allowed to pardon himself either. But it is the United States of America. So there you go. I think that is just, for us, hard to get our head around, isn't it? It just wouldn't happen in this country. Not only does the pardoning system not exist. Let us know your thoughts on all of this.
Well, also for us, we've some very exciting news to share with you this morning. GB Breakfast News has been nominated for a Trick Award. The Best News Programme category is the situation, and as Isabel will now demonstrate to you.
Well, yeah, it's not the same, technically the same category as the award we won last year, this little puppy. This was the multi-channel news programme that we got in 2023. This year, slightly different category, but we do need your votes. And all you have to do is head to the poll. It's poll-trick.org.uk and cast your vote.
Yeah, there you go. And those are the other GB News people that have been nominated for awards. Claire Tominey, Nigel Farage there as well, The Breakfast Show, and some boyo up there on the right.
What a handsome devil.
Well.
Yeah, so 4 nominations. Best Programme, Nigel Eamonn for Best Presenter, and Camilla Tominey for Best Interview with Alistair Stewart there.
Yeah, so poll-trick.org.uk. That's what you got to do. Why this is so important is this is you that decides. This is not some sort of elitist panel that will have some attitude towards us and not include us in anything. We won last year because of you, because of you, the listeners, and you, the viewers, who said, why not? Give us a go and give everyone else a bloody nose.
What we'd really like is to create a trophy cabinet here and to have more than just the one and put a couple of these in. Not to be greedy, but it would be lovely. And they are rather good looking, aren't they? Looks good. I'm trying to put it in front of your jacket for the contrast. There you go. Yeah. Look at that beauty.
2 good-looking things together.
Stop it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You know what to do. Please do get involved, and thank you in advance if you do vote for us, all of us here on The Breakfast Programme, the team behind the scenes, all of the presenters. We're very, very grateful. Thank you.
Right, let's get a look at the weather picture. And today, I couldn't believe it, Isabel. It came out this morning. Rain.
Freezing
again.
cold as well.
Freezing and rain. And there will still be a drought, a hosepipe ban come the summer, however brief that will be. Good morning, Alex Burkle.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Many of us will see some decent sunshine today, although in the southeast here there is quite a bit of cloud and also some drizzly rain. This pushing in across eastern parts of England this morning, feeding into parts of East Anglia and towards London and Kent as we head towards the afternoon. Some showery outbreaks across parts of the southwest, otherwise lots of places having a dry day, particularly across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of sunshine and blue skies here. A bit of a west-east split in our temperatures in the east. Pretty cool at times, temperatures just about getting into double figures. Milder or warmer further west with lots of places in the mid, possibly even high teens. Any drizzly rain across parts of the southeast will clear away as we go through this evening, leaving a largely dry night and largely clear skies too. As a result, with the clear skies and some cold air making its way across the country, we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a dip. So there will be a bit of frost around first thing tomorrow morning, particularly where we have some lengthy clear skies and away from eastern parts, which are going to be a bit blustery as we go into tomorrow. So watch out for some blustery winds in the east and also some fairly frequent showers, which could turn a bit heavy across parts of East Anglia and perhaps towards Kent. Elsewhere, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, just 1 or 2 showers to watch out for, but plenty of blue skies yet again. Temperatures a little bit lower for many of us, so really feeling a bit cool considering it's the middle of spring. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The final week to see how your next holiday could shape up.
Yes, your chance to win a Greek cruise for 2, £10,000 in cash and luxury travel gifts, total worth of £20,000.
Don't miss it. Here's how you get it.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for 2 worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. today. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, Paul Coit with the sports news next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We've got Paul, and he's got the stories making the sports headlines. Nottingham Forest back in there. Back page of the Mail today saying they're threatening to sue. Well, they threatened to sue everybody, but they're threatening to sue Sky over... Gary Neville was on there, and he was talking to Jimmy Carragher, and he was saying how ridiculous the Forest action was, and it was said it was like a mafia type action in this, and they've taken exception to this now.
It is. I mean, to cut a long story short, and for those that are not aware, there were 3 penalty decisions that Nottingham Forest say they should have had against Everton.
Did you see them?
Yeah, I thought one of them, yes. The other 2 could have gone one way or the other.
And you see them going one way or the other every match.
Every single week we see this.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that, this is a disgrace about VAR. What I'm saying is that every week we see decisions which could go one way or the other. Yeah. And you side with the referee. The last one, I think, yes, was a penalty. But again, we see it all the time, don't we? Yeah. So, big deal. So there was the social media post questioning the integrity of the supposed Luton fan, Stuart Atwell, on VAR, which I think is appalling. I think to actually go on there and say, well, we said that he shouldn't be... he shouldn't be on VAR because he's a Luton fan, and Luton have got a vested interest onto how Nottingham Forest do because they're in the relegation zone as well. I just think it's ridiculous. Yeah. And I think what they're doing at the moment, Amy, is that they're doubling down on this, whereas now they're getting flack and they're saying we're going to stick with it, and now they're saying, well, we're doing it for the good of the integrity of the Premier League. I want to say one thing, and one thing only about this, and that is there is no conspiracy against any team in the Premier League. I also think that John F. Kennedy was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald and nobody else as well, but I have these thoughts. I just think everybody seems to think there's a conspiracy against them. Everybody wants us out. There's no such thing.
Well, Forest may well be in the Championship next year. The Championship title race really hotting up. Tell us what's going on there. Well done, Leeds, last night.
Yeah, Middlesbrough 3, Leeds 4. They're back in the automatic promotion places now after beating Middlesbrough there, Michael Carrick's side. I mean, this is how things are looking, and it's always really tight, the Championship. So much, we look at the Premier League all the time, but the Championship, Leicester are top. They've played 43, they're 91 points. Then we've got Leeds, who have played one game more on 90. And then the other one, then we've got Ipswich, who played 43, and they're on 89. And then we've got Southampton, West Brom and Norwich as well. So it's so tight.
Yeah.
So it's like this. So it's the top 2 that will go straight to the Premier League, and the other 4 will play in the playoffs. So only a few games to go.
Tonight in the Premier League, you've got Arsenal against Chelsea. That'll be an interesting one. And you've got some footage here of the Olympic ship.
Yes,
Olympic ship.
Right. I thought it'd be nice. I thought it'd be nice to show the ship where the Olympic flame. I can tell you a little bit about the ship. Do we have the beautiful ship? There it is. I think it looks like the Jolly Roger booze cruise heading into Athens, but oh no, it's much classier than that. This is the ship that will be taking the Olympic torch. See, they lit the flame outside the Parthenon or the Acropolis. I think the Acropolis is the mountain and the Parthenon is the old building on the top.
Building, yeah.
So that was lit at the weekend. The flame is handed over to Paris on Friday to the Games organisers. So that is the port of Piraeus, which is near Athens. If anybody's taken a cruise from Athens, that's where you would go from. And they'll be off to the port of Marseille, a 3-masted ship called the Belém. Belém, and then it will go for a 68-day tour around France and the colonies. So they even go off to all the French colonies. So surely they're going to have to go in the plane and then take the flame on the plane.
Well, it's got a bit of travelling to do.
Yeah, it's got a lot of And that's a merchant trade ship from 1896, by the way.
Yeah, under 100 days to the start of the Games in Paris. It could be worse. I've spent many, many years, many times at the Crucible Theatre for the World Snooker Championship.
Yes.
Although they did knock it down and rebuild it. But there's a player from Iran who says that the Crucible stinks.
Yeah.
It's really smelly.
It is apparently very smelly. Well, did you find it smelly when you were there?
Not when I was there, no.
Not when you were there?
No.
When were you last at the Crucible?
Well, you see, when I was there, it was all sponsored by Benson and Hedges cigarettes, so it just smelled of smoke.
Well, apparently, it still smells of old fags. That's the thing. Wherever you go, it's you go like that. That's the smell of Alex Higgins, Benson and Hedges from 1977. It's all in the drapes. It's everywhere. So he says it smells. I mean, it's a theatre after all. It's not a purpose-built sports venue, but it's the Crucible. That's where the World Championships are held, so it's always there. He says it. This is what Hossein Bafai says. It smells really bad. The practice room is like a garage. The tournament should move elsewhere. And by the way, one quick one. Today is an anniversary from the Crucible. This day in 1983, what did Cliff Thorburn do, Eamonn?
He got the first televised 147.
Yes, sir, he did.
Yes!
Yes, he did.
Thank you. I remember it.
This day in 1983, the grinder. I think it means something different these days.
Anyway, let's move on to the
There we are.
newspapers.
Moving swiftly on. Still to come, we're going through the front pages of the papers. We've got Andy Williams and Scarlett Maguire for that in Making the News. Don't go anywhere.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced trains again today between Airtree and Bathgate for emergency engineering works. On Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle is closed eastbound off Derby Road to clear a spillage from yesterday afternoon. On the M6 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 19 and 18 from Knutsford to the Middlewich and Holmes Chapel turn. On the A1 in Nottinghamshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between Blythe and Ranby. In Staffordshire, on the A50, there's a lane closed each way after an accident between Uttoxeter and the Blythe Bridge roundabout. On the M5 in Worcestershire, there are southbound queues towards roadworks just after junction 4A for the M42, and the inside lane is closed. And in Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards roadworks just before junction 5 of the M2 at Sittingbourne. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
What's making the news and what's got our columnists talking today? Scarlett Maguire, Andy Williams, we say good morning to both of them.
Morning.
And guys, what do you think? I want to begin with the Rwanda bill. Do you think, I mean, the Prime Minister says we're now 10, 12 weeks away from flights. What do you think, Scarlett?
Where do you begin with the Rwanda bill? I mean, it's not going to work. How many people are going to be sent over? A few hundred. We have thousands coming in, so they know the odds are that it's not going to work.
The plan was never to send all of them over. The idea was, within days now, they're going to start detaining people, earmarking those people for the flights that will go off in the next few weeks, and that will hopefully bubble through a few flights every month, as Rishi Sunak has said, and that will be the deterrent.
But if you think of what these people have been through to get here, the fact that there's a lottery of whether they go to Rwanda is pretty low. What's also interesting is this is the hill that Rishi wants to die on, and yet if you know, friends of mine who are out canvassing say that people go, well, we don't want to spend millions sending people to Rwanda. We just don't want them coming. You should be stopping the boats, and this isn't going to work. And so they're very, very angry. And then,
so what would Labour's plan be then to stop the boats?
To do much more upstream, to actually look at what's going on in France.
That's what they've been doing.
Well, they haven't.
Money after good money after good money.
But it hasn't worked. So
French don't want to keep them.
No,
frankly.
well, of course, if I was French, I wouldn't want to keep them either. Why keep people in my country that I don't want and don't want to be there? But actually, that's what you have to do. And the other thing you have to do is it has to be... I noticed that I think Michael Tomlinson, the immigration minister, said this is a global problem. And actually, we've got to sort it out globally. I mean, suddenly, we have all these Vietnamese people coming.
Yeah.
Why? What is happening? We have to go to Vietnam and find out what the problem is.
Vietnamese figure's really high. Just
I mean, it's massive. I mean, I don't know enough about Vietnam to know why suddenly people are desperate to come. It's very, very strange.
What do you think about it all, Andy? It was sort of an interesting evening of ping-pong back and forth. Yeah. Lots of questions as well about the role of the Lords in all of this, whether it needs reform.
Absolutely, yes. So Rishi Sunak's been saying Labour are the people who have been blocking us in the House of Lords, and there's absolutely no doubt there were many peers who were trying to stall this legislation, even as late as 1 o'clock this morning. But it's worth bearing in mind, the Conservatives do have almost 300 peers in there, and there's been lots of Conservative voices who've been very sceptical about this legislation as well. I think Rishi Sunak might have created a really serious political problem for himself here. He's set a really high bar for success. He's not said bring down the number of people crossing the channel. He's not said let's get numbers under control. He has said, and he said it again yesterday, success is when the votes are being stopped. And there's no sign that that's going to happen. In fact, year on year, the numbers are up.
Think of the optics, which is why he'll not hold a general election before the first plane flies out. But if a first plane flew out and it had 200 migrants on board, that's got to augur well for him, hasn't it, at the polls?
Well, it's better than nothing. But if you look at the figures that came out yesterday, we're 24% up year on year to date in terms of small boat arrivals. There have been 6,200 people already who've arrived in small boats since the 1st of January. So if 200 people go to Rwanda on planes, my maths isn't quick enough to work that out off the top of my head, but it's a very small percentage.
Well, Nigel Farage says he predicts not a single person will be deported at all because of human rights legislation that's come in through the ECHR. I mean, he might be right.
He might be right. My sense is, based on the sort of detail that was set out yesterday, that there will be planes that leave with people on them. They seem to have airports set up and judges ready to sort of fast-track approval. So I think, you know, in some sense it's an achievement to get this legislation through, but to Scarlett's point, I don't think it truly comes even close to tackling the scale of the problem. And as I said, he set a very, very high bar for himself. Only 8% of people, according to YouGov, think that the government is handling this issue well.
Can I just, and I made this point earlier on in the hour, but it just as a bit of a bugbear of mine, is that I always want to flag net migration figures in all of this. 750,000 people came into this country last year, 30,000 of those illegally. £500 million being spent on this policy, which will affect 1% of those 30,000. The vast majority are coming in legally, with the government say-so, into our universities, which are institutions in crisis. British students being priced out by these lucrative foreign students. 643,000 students came into the UK legally last year. And people are saying this is why all of our services and all of our infrastructure is creaking.
But you can't have it both ways, Isabel. I mean, you've got cities like Manchester, Glasgow, Belfast, who are having huge growth in their infrastructure because the money that these students are spending, the flats that they're investing in, all that sort of thing. So they can't have it both ways. They're getting something from these students.
But more than that, is these students are keeping the universities... you say they're pricing out the British. I mean, the universities cannot live on the money that they get. They absolutely depend on foreign students to keep... I mean, you know, we do have to do something about the universities, but at the moment, you have foreign students and they pay for the courses because £9,000... It's okay for history,
have to have
but
an honest
that's
conversation and say, if we want to keep universities in this country, it means we're going to have 634,000 foreigners every year coming into this country, and the vast majority of those people staying. 30,000 people coming illegally is a drop in the ocean in comparison.
I agree with you, but I wouldn't. I also wouldn't just pick on students. I mean, actually,
101,000 care workers, 23,000 nurses.
Yeah. And what are we saying to the care workers? Well, we want you, but you can't bring your families because you don't earn enough money because we're not going to give you enough money. I mean, it seems to be that what we want is we want certain people to do certain jobs and then we'd like you to go home. I mean, you know, we can't be that picky.
My friend Jill Dando was murdered 25 years ago. I called into the petrol station, one of the last places that she called into this morning. I was just thinking of this. But Andy, Mirror they've gone really big on this today, about 6 pages on this, and they're saying a man wanted for questioning bears a striking resemblance to a Serbian Secret Service assassin.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's unbelievable that a quarter of a century on, this murder, this awful murder, remains unsolved when it happened in broad daylight on a Monday morning in the middle of London. Excuse me, there have been long-standing rumours that this might be some sort of hitman, and actually, I don't know if anyone's watched the really quite good Netflix documentary on this. Everything about this murder points to it being a professional hit job. And so there is a story today that actually there is a suspect who bears a striking resemblance to the person in the sort of E-fit image who was a Serbian assassin. So maybe it's a significant breakthrough in the case.
But actually, interestingly, I've forgotten the name of the guy who went down for it. But
Barry George.
Barry George, yeah. So, but his defence was that actually, really, it was a Serbian hitman, and all of us sort of thought, why would a Serbian hitman go for Jill Dando?
Well, she did present Crime Watch.
Yeah.
I always thought that put her in a vulnerable spot, personally.
Absolutely, and I think she did sort of fundraising for Kosovan charities as well. So there are links.
But you know, the thing is, no matter what she did, no one ever come out and said, this is why she's died, or this is why she was a target. So the thing is, there was no clue, there was no indication why Jill.
Yeah. And that's why, when he said, oh, I think it was a Serbian hitman, you thought, come on.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean...
And there's a whole generation, probably including some people in our newsroom, who don't really appreciate what a big star Jill Dando was. I mean, her resemblance to Princess Diana also they're almost on a par, weren't they, the two of them? The absolute nation sweethearts. And as you say, Eamonn, a dear, dear friend of yours, and her brother was a dear friend of mine. But it's just, it's unbelievable. It was 25 years ago.
Right, to another TV presenter, The Sun has gone big on this, and it's on the front pages of The Times and The Mirror there as well, and that is BBC presenter Hugh Edwards. So, Andy, it's saying here, no thanks, no payoff, yet the mum who complains still gets no answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an investigation ongoing within the BBC, and I think we probably have to be a little bit careful about what we say. Well, we don't have all the facts at hand, but I just think it's a very sad end to an exceptional career. One of the BBC's greatest broadcasters, who's there for 40 years, all these iconic moments, and I completely understand from, I work in communications. From a PR perspective, if you're writing that statement at the BBC, you can't eulogise somebody who is still under investigation, where we don't know all the facts, but it's a real... I think it's just sad that his career should come to an end
and you know what?
way.
Presenting the 10 o'clock news or the 1 o'clock, whatever it was, really didn't demonstrate the full gambit of his talent. I mean, when it comes to listening to him commentate on those national events, honestly, he was second to none at that. And that's why I think it was such a shock, really, when he did become the centre of this storm.
I can tell you what we'll do. We're now going to take a break because we've got the Minister of State for Illegal Migration, and we're going to cross to him after we come back from this. Please don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced trains again today between Airdrie and Bathgate for emergency engineering works on the M621 in West Yorkshire. The westbound entry slip roads closed at junction 7 at Sturton because of a breakdown. On Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle is closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road to clear a spillage from yesterday afternoon. Buses replaced trains between Llandudno and Llandudno Junction because of a signalling problem. On the A1 in Nottinghamshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between Blythe and Ranby, causing delays. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed westbound from Uttoxeter to the Blythe Bridge roundabout after an accident. And on the M5 in Worcestershire, the inside lane is closed southbound just after junction 4A for the M42 for roadworks. There are delays towards and past there as a result. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back. We're going through Making the News with the political commentator Andy Williams and the former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Let's look at this exclusive in The Guardian. The Met Police Chief has done a sit-down interview with them, and he stood up for his sergeant who had that interaction with Gideon Falter at that rally over the weekend, Scarlett. What do you make of that? Because there are lots of people who are very critical of the language that this officer used, about calling him openly Jewish.
I mean, I think there was no question that the way it was dealt with was clumsy, but what Mark Rowley is saying is that when he talked to the policeman, is that actually if you watch the whole 13 minutes, which I have not done, of the thing, that actually what the policeman is saying is look, maybe it'd be better if you crossed somewhere else, that it would be, that this is a demo and you don't want to go straight through it. And that actually what he was trying to do was he was trying to do crowd control, and he was
also protecting the man involved as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a bit like... So when there was a campaign against anti-Semitism march, I mean, they asked Tommy Robinson to stay away, and Tommy Robinson was arrested for not staying away. So because they felt that he would be provocative and he'd give the wrong impression. And I mean, the whole thing is sort of very, very controversial. I mean, this is a man who, when Margaret Hodge was asked to be a patron for the campaign for anti-Semitism, I mean, he turned her down because she was Labour. I mean, this is a very, very political organisation, and I mean, I do think it was dealt with badly. I think there is absolutely no question that what was said to him was wrong, and that it was actually really unfortunate it was that bit of the march, because of course there's a whole Jewish contingent on those marches.
Yeah, but I mean, was this a setup, and was this fakery by activists, as he seems to be implying in this interview? He said officers at other protests had been set up by activists using fakery to undermine the force. Is he saying that this is a setup by Gideon Fulton? If so, that's pretty controversial.
Well, I think it speaks to the complexity of what the Metropolitan Police have to deal with. There are many reasons why it's a very imperfect organisation, and I think they've got a lot of flack, rightly so, for all sorts of things. However, these marches have been a nightmare to police. You're not just dealing with large groups of people, and in some cases very angry people, but people who are actively trying to make a political case against the other side. And there's a religious dimension, there's a racial dimension, there's a cultural dimension. It's
only
really
have it
tough.
as a Venn diagram. Right in the middle is the Met Commissioner. I wouldn't want to be in that Venn diagram.
Andy and Scarlett, are you both English?
Yes.
Well, I'm Scots-Irish. I mean, my name's Maguire.
You don't identify as English. You weren't born in England? Or...
I identify as British. Yes, I was born in England.
But you don't identify as English?
Well, I do.
You've summed it up. The Labour inability to own their national identity.
No, look, I had a Scots mother and an Irish father and an Irish...
You were born in England.
And I was born in England, and I support the English football team, which is fine. And I do think that the special things about the English, like the sense of humour, is different from the Celts. But... I mean, I think that lots of English people, we're a conglomerate of all of them.
Yes. But you won't be celebrating St George's Day today, then?
I think the problem with St George's Day, it's really interesting. I'm on GB News every St George's Day, always by accident, and always I'm told to celebrate it. St Patrick's Day, St Andrew's Day, St David's Day, they're real. The thing is, St George's Day... You don't have to be Labour. I mean, there are lots of English people who do not celebrate.
Well, everybody hold that thought. That's very interesting from Scarlett. We'll return to that. But right now we've got Michael Tomlinson. Michael's the Minister of State for Illegal Migration, and he joins us on the morning after the night before, when the Rwanda bill got passed and came through. Michael, when will we see things happening on that front?
Well, as you know, I'm keen to see things happening as soon as possible. The Prime Minister set out and made it very clear that it's going to take 10 to 12 weeks for the first flight to actually take off and to get off the ground. But you're right, last night was a momentous occasion. We were told that the bill would never pass, that we'd never get it through, and the Prime Minister was determined to ensure that we got the bill through, and we did that last night. And shortly after midnight, I found myself standing at the bar of the House of Lords and listening to the final speeches there, where they confirmed that the bill was actually going to go through. It's a landmark moment and an important moment for this Rwanda scheme.
So you might have won the battle, but have you won the war. Lots of people calling this legislation a significant threat to the rule of law. The United Nations have said the flights taking off could break international law. What I'm trying to say is there's going to be no end of legal challenges to this and big question marks about whether or not any of these deportees will ever make it to Rwanda.
Well, you're right to characterise it as a battle because it was a significant battle in the House of Commons. We saw the Labour Lords trying to block it at every step. We saw Labour in the House of Commons yesterday voting against it as well. And you're also right to say that there are now challenges that are inevitably going to come our way. But our assessment is that, yes, it does comply with international law. Our assessment is that we have drafted it in a clear and unambiguous way, such as the courts are going to have to listen to what Parliament and the Act of Parliament says. And we're determined to see those planes take off. And you know, because we discussed it before, my impatience to make sure that these planes take off. And it's important for this reason, because we need to see that deterrent in place. We need to see that people who come here illegally, people who are smuggled over by the evil criminal smuggling gangs, that you are not going to be able to stay here, that you are going to be removed quickly to Rwanda, and that will be the deterrent that's put in place to ensure that the small boats stop coming. I mean, frankly, we've seen more interest from the Labour Party in stopping the flights. We are determined to stop the boats.
Do eventually take off, Michael. Would it be your intention to put these migrants on regular scheduled flights as opposed to chartered aircraft?
Well, I mean, you'll forgive me. I'm not going to get into too much of the detail there, and just let me explain why. I understand the interest, and I understand your question. I want us to ensure that there are going to be regular flights. That's what I want to see. But there are those, as has been hinted at before, who are determined to ensure that this policy does not work. Those in the Labour Party and others as well, who are determined to set up whatever challenges, whether that's legal, whatever obstacles. They're determined to throw that in the way of this scheme. And so I'm just going to be a little bit cautious, if you like, not reveal every detail that's going to happen. But you are right. We do want to have a regular rhythm. We do want to have regular flights. But it's going to take 10 to 12 weeks before we get that first flight off the ground.
Still at a loss as to why the Prime Minister's decided to spend or expend so much political capital on this bill. Andrew Mitchell, who we had on yesterday morning, he wrote just 2 years ago for the Conservative Home website that this was a nonsense policy. The Prime Minister, as we know, when he was Chancellor, was lukewarm about it. The Home Secretary now called it bat ... although he claims he doesn't remember saying that. And Suella Braverman yesterday, former Home Secretary, saying that it won't work. So why is Mr Sunak so committed to it?
Well, it's really important that we have that deterrent piece in place. We've seen small boat crossings, we've seen evil criminal smuggling gangs, and it should be us. We are in control of our borders. It shouldn't be those who are paying to come here illegally, and that's why we need the deterrent effect up and in place. And you're right, it hasn't been easy to get the bill through the House of Commons. But don't forget that the eyes of the world are watching this scheme. We are not the only country. This is not just the United Kingdom. This is not just France. It's not just a European issue, but it's a global issue as well. And you'll see that the eyes of the world are watching this scheme. There are other countries who are interested to see how this scheme works because we are looking at a global problem. There are over 100 million people on the move around the world, and that means that there needs to be a global solution. You will have heard from the Home Secretary his speech over in New York. This is a global issue, and that's why we've started that global conversation, and that's why this scheme, this Rwanda scheme, is so important. That's why the Prime Minister was determined to get it through Parliament, and he succeeded in doing just that.
Well, now that it is through, Michael, because of the House of Lords intervention, do you believe you've got a better bill or a worse bill than originally intended?
Well, I mean, it's almost exactly the same as the bill that was introduced. There were minor tweaks and changes, if you like, but that's inevitable. That's part of the process. My frustration, if you like, is that we saw it was being held up in the House of Lords, and there's no doubt that that's Keir Starmer directing his troops, directing the Labour Lords to block it. There's no doubt about that. And the amendments fell into two categories, really. There were those that were designed to undermine the whole purpose of the bill, and and there are those that were simply unnecessary. And by midnight last night, we were down to 2 amendments that, in my view, and in the government's view, were simply unnecessary. They didn't need to be there on the face of the bill. The primacy of the House of Commons prevailed in the end, and that was right. There were significant majorities. I mean, you'll have seen the numbers, majorities of 60, 65, 70 coming through, and that shows the Prime Minister's determination to get the bill through and now to get the planes off the ground.
Just lastly, I want to ask you about China. I know the case is active in the case of these 2 people who have been charged with espionage offences, but incredibly serious and worrying, not least in the context of 2 cyber attacks by the Chinese in March, and a foreign secretary with a number of private business associations still with that country. What to do with a problem like China? Is it time to call it out as the threat that it is?
Well, there is no doubt that this is a serious moment. You've seen the announcement from the CPS yesterday. You're right. There is a limited amount that I can say. That there's nothing that I would want to say, or people should say, in fact, that would prejudice a trial. You'd expect me to say that. I'm a former law officer, and in my role as the Solicitor General, I superintended the work of the CPS. So they've done their work, and we now need to let the court and the legal process work its way through as well. So I'm afraid there's nothing more that I can say about that.
No, but my question wasn't just about those 2 individuals. It was about the wider threat that the country poses and the Prime Minister's reluctance to call it out as a threat, calling it a challenge of an epoch. And, you know, summoning the ambassador isn't exactly going to cut it. I think Ian Duncan Smith said it was like an elephant giving birth to a mouse, and an SNP MP saying it was like turning up to a gunfight with a wooden spoon.
Well, I don't think that's right. I think the Prime Minister is right to characterise it in the way that he has. These are serious international and global issues, and I think the Prime Minister is right to be cautious. I'm certainly cautious in the language and careful in the language that I use, but there's no doubt that there is a challenge there, and it's one that we're determined to take and face head on.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your time today. I know it's a busy day for you. Appreciate listening to what you had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks, Eamon. Thank you.
Well, if you are just tuning in, our top stories this morning is that the Rwanda bill passed through Parliament last night, a historic and far-reaching piece of legislation now set to become law after 8 hours of debate. But we're asking this morning, when will those first flights take off?
Happy St George's Day. If you're English, we'll be looking at the meaning and celebration behind England's patron saint.
The President, the porn star and the payments. Donald Trump's hush money trial against Stormy Daniels has begun with allegations that he tried to corrupt the 2016 election.
And in the sport this morning, Nottingham Forest still seem to think the world's against them and now want the audio of the contentious refereeing decisions released. Leeds are back in the automatic promotion places after beating Middlesbrough 3-0 last night. And for England's National Day, we'll play the game that everybody's talking about.
What's that? What game?
Well, everybody's talking about it.
What?
Name that famous sporting George.
Ooh.
We're going to play. Ooh. If you think you're up for it.
By George, yes.
Morning. Whilst it is the middle of spring, it's not necessarily going to feel it, with a bit of a cool feel for some of us and a bit of rain at times too. I'll have more details coming up.
After 5 months of deadlock, the Rwanda bills finally passed through Parliament. We've just been talking to a minister there about it. It'll become law in 10 to 12 weeks' time after peers ended their standoff over the controversial policy.
Yes, the showdown comes after the Prime Minister declared that enough is enough and said MPs and peers will sit through the night to get the bill passed, and that's exactly what happens. And it now designates Rwanda as a safe country in spite of the Supreme Court ruling that it wasn't, and will allow the government to deport asylum seekers there.
Joining us now, political commentator Benedict Spence. Benedict, you've heard the government reaction to this today. What sort of shape do you think this bill is in?
Well, I mean, I think it's come through in about as ragged a way as it can. I think it's been chewed up, it's been spat out several times, it's gone back to MPs 5 times. They'll be delighted that they've got it through, but now comes the next phase. You know, it's far from done. It's the end of the beginning, if you like. Now come more legal challenges. There's already the precedent, of course, of the UK Supreme Court saying that Rwanda is not necessarily safe, saying that the bill is unlawful. We are obviously going to have more challenges from over the ECHR, again, over whether or not it's safe. That was one of the main amendments, actually, that the Lords were putting to the government over this, that they eventually backed down on, was a desire to have an independent panel to sort of adjudicate and monitor to say whether or not Rwanda is a safe country. That, I think, is going to be key to all of this, whether or not you can determine that an East African country meets the standards of, let's be clear, just Western European countries, which is always going to be very difficult to do. And as Rishi Sunak himself said, 10 to 12 weeks is what he imagines, so not the spring. We will not be seeing flights taking off imminently. There is still a bit of a way to go, and my word, I'm sure a lot of lawyers will be working around the clock on their cases that they'll be bringing against this.
Do you think that, I mean, this is the right hill for the Prime Minister to die on, if you like, and when you think of the percentage of net migration that this creates?
I think it's this effect. I tell you what, it's a curious one, because something that has been sort of floated on the Conservative backbenches for some time about the idea of a referendum on membership of the ECHR, which is not a sensible thing, I think, to have at this moment, but it does raise a very valuable question, which is, in a post-Brexit Britain, actually, how much control does the British government still have over its own borders, over its own ability to pass legislation, to create laws? I think this is a very serious thing.
Well, we have 750,000 people coming to this country, the vast majority of those legally, that the government has the ability to stop, but they don't. And it's only this 30,000 that would arguably be affected by the ECHR. I mean, we've spoken to Yvette Cooper on this programme. In fact, she's coming on again very shortly. She says you can't pull out of the ECHR because of the Good Friday Agreement.
I mean, this is a separate issue on mass migration that's legal. It's a justified one, but it's a separate one to whether or not the UK can actually face down international conventions courts and actually make the valid point, which is that legislation does not stay relevant in perpetuity. Actually, situations change, laws change, the world changes. This is post-Second World War legislation, which I think everybody would have said at the time was entirely justified because of what was happening across the continent of Europe. We no longer live in that same world, so easier to actually fit for purpose. I think a lot of people will justifiably argue no, but actually with a few months to go towards a general election, with no real scope for what an alternative to the ECHR in the UK would look like, is this in fact the moment to be pushing this? Perhaps they should have been doing this 5 years ago. Maybe that would have been sensible, rather than just as we're about to hit the general election and their polling is at an all-time low to go, do you know what, we're going to throw up another major constitutional spanner and just see how it goes.
Yeah, OK. Benedict Spence, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Though the motion failed, the Scottish Conservative debate on repealing the Hate Crime Act exposed fundamental concerns with the law last week.
Well, Scotland reporter Tony Maguire has been speaking to people who have received such complaints against them.
Welcome to Scotland, home of Humza Yousaf's hate crime law, a.k.a. the Clypes Charter.
Clype, a delightfully Scottish word for a grass, a snitch, or in the context of Russell Finley's opening gambit during the hate crime debate at Holyrood last week, reporting your friends, family and neighbours to the police for alleged hate crimes. The SNP responded by doubling down on the new law's ability to protect vulnerable victims.
I am confident that we have robust legislation that will protect those who are vulnerable to harm.
But other victims are emerging in the wake of this new legislation. As the bill moved through Parliament, concerns rose of police inundated with vexatious complaints, targeting individuals who had committed no crimes. The first fortnight of the new law gave rise to nearly 9,000 complaints.
The vast majority, at least 95%, have been deemed not to be crimes.
False reporting is nothing new. A social post from Scottish Conservative Murdo Fraser was flagged by a trans rights activist in November.
Police decided that no crime had been committed, but nevertheless that was recorded as a non-crime hate incident.
And Alba Westminster leader Neil Hanvey says he too has been targeted under pre-existing legislation.
I've been the victim of at least one of those complaints, and that's taken up the time of police officers.
Thick skin can be expected of our elected officials, but what about the public? 74-year-old Morag McDougall-Brown says she was reported to police by a neighbour, and the experience has taken its toll.
I hate to think that anybody like me or similar to my age would ever have to go through this, because I really don't think I will ever go over it. It's a danger to Scotland. It affects us. It affects our freedom of speech. It's a gagging order.
In spite of everything, Morag is full of praise for the attending officers for swiftly concluding she was no hate monster. The Scottish Government now acknowledges the greater issue of misreporting.
We must send a strong message to those making vexatious complaints to stop doing so.
Complaints dropped 75% in the second week, but logging non-crime hate crime incidents still concerns many, even on the SNP backbenches.
Is it not even more insidious, actually, that you can have a black mark in your name without even knowing about it?
Tony Maguire, GB News.
Bit of good news. Again, we won this last year. This is the best breakfast programme at the Trick Awards, the Television Radio Industry Clubs Award. And the nicest thing and the best thing about all of this is it was voted for by you online. And we've been nominated again. So this is how you vote for us. You just get on, vote for GB News to win, and you do it this way. You go to poll-trick.org.uk and you register your vote there for either breakfast or the other categories that GB News has been put forward to. So it really just does mean a lot if you take the time and you take the effort. poll-trick.org.uk. Very much appreciated, and it's important, I think, for us to register against the established programmes who are there and who take their success for granted. But you, the viewers and the listeners, are here to say the block has changed a bit, and we are now on it.
And we punch above our weight with such a small team here. It's recognition of all of the hard work that everybody does behind the scenes as well as on screen. And this is very much your award as much as it was our award last year, because without you, we wouldn't get the votes, we wouldn't have the programme. So thank you for voting last year. And if you're going to vote for us again, we're very grateful.
Right. Now it's time for the weather picture, which should be a bit better than it is for us in the southeast, but it's not. I think it is
miserable
pretty good
out there
everywhere else.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Many of us will see some decent sunshine today, although in the southeast here there is quite a bit of cloud and also some drizzly rain. This pushing in across eastern parts of England this morning, feeding into parts of East Anglia and towards London and Kent as we head towards the afternoon. Some showery outbreaks across parts of the southwest, otherwise lots of places having a dry day, particularly across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of sunshine and blue skies here. A bit of a westy split in our temperatures in the east. Pretty cool at times, temperatures just about getting into double figures. Milder or warmer further west with lots of places in the mid, possibly even high teens. Any drizzly rain across parts of the southeast will clear away as we go through this evening, leaving a largely dry night and largely clear skies too. As a result, with the clear skies and some cold air making its way across the country, we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a dip. So there will be a bit of frost around first thing tomorrow morning, particularly where we have some lengthy clear skies and away from eastern parts, which are going to be a bit blustery as we go into tomorrow. So watch out for some blustery winds in the east and also some fairly frequent showers, which could turn a bit heavy across parts of East Anglia and perhaps towards Kent. Elsewhere, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, just 1 or 2 showers to watch out for, but plenty of blue skies yet again. Temperatures a little bit lower for many of us, so really feeling a bit cool considering it's the middle of spring. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You can't rely on the weather here, can you? But you can rely on the weather in Greece. So here's how you can get your hands on a luxury cruise in the Greek islands for two, £10,000 in cash plus luxury travel gifts.
Wiser, have a go.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now then, still to come, it is a royal birthday today. Prince Louis celebrates his 6th birthday, and we'll be discussing that next.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So we want to wish a very happy birthday to Prince Louis. I think really, in many ways, everybody's favourite royal child. He's just a little bit of a monster, isn't he? Prince Louis is turning 6 today. Very happy birthday to you. And how appropriate, as it is St George's Day, a national day as well.
But he's called Louis.
Well, I know. His brother had already stolen the name.
Anyway, though royal fans will be disappointed as William and Kate haven't released a celebratory photo of their youngest child yet, we're gonna find out how disappointing that is to our royal reporter, Miss Kinsey Schofield.
Morning.
Were you expecting this, Kinsey, or what do you think?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that over the weekend, I went on a whale watching trip where I met 2 GB News mega fans. And they said that they loved having an alternative in the UK, that it was such a breath of fresh air.
Stop.
And they said, how is Eamonn in real life? And I said, more gorgeous than you could ever imagine. I said, what a beautiful man.
Were they English or were they American?
Or mad?
They were English, yes. And they said, oh, we can't wait to get home and to see you on the TV. I said, at GB News, it's the answer. So congratulations on your nomination again this year.
Thank you. Well, you are part of that team, so you are very much...
Did you see any whales?
Oh, you would not believe how many whales when I'm not whales watching, I'm whales watching.
There you
and
go.
yes, I saw so many fin whales. I was thrilled. But yeah,
okay, back to the whales.
Yes, I do think that people might be a little disappointed, but at the same time, Isabel, I'm sure you'll agree with me here, I don't think it's unfair if the Prince and Princess of Wales decide to set new boundaries after what they experienced at the beginning of 2024. I think that they were disappointed in the online speculation about what was going on and how some of those conspiracy theories translated onto mainstream media. And I think that that was frustrating for them. And they just might be setting some new rules that we're going to have to abide by.
Yeah, so what would normally happen for every birthday of the Wales' children, they would publish a picture, be sent out under embargo the day before, which means everybody had it ready to go in the morning bulletins. And yesterday, we didn't get anything. We're being told we won't get a picture, which, you know, as you say, are we being almost punished for all these conspiracy theories and the treatment of the Princess of Wales? And is that just fair enough, as you say?
I mean, that's what we did hear from sources last month that they did intend to release a photo of Louis. That obviously hasn't happened. But I think one of the reasons that maybe they didn't do it is because Catherine is usually the photographer.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was criticized so heavily over the photoshopped photo. And it just might not be a priority that, you know, this time around. What we do know is typically the Princess of Wales stays up all night the night before to bake them cake. She jokes that she makes way more cake than the family can even consume, but that's a tradition that she really enjoys. And she loves the look on their faces when they wake up the next morning and there's that, you know, there's the sugar rush is waiting, ready to go. And like you said, Louis, everyone's favorite royal, of course, you're going to roll out the red carpet for this guy because he is just fun on wheels.
He's just the best. I just adore him. He's just so sweet. Yeah, I've got a soft spot for little Louis. But anyway, from our favourite, I suppose you could say, to our least favourite, you've got some Meghan news for us this morning.
That's right. You know, she was making a name for herself really in America by being a podcaster prior to a jam maker. But Limonada is apparently putting her new podcast on hold until next year at the earliest, because they're afraid that her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, and her new Netflix series could conflict with the promotion that they'd really like to go into this new podcasting venture. There is, I would suspect, not a lot of money on the line here, or there would be pressure and bigger expectations for Meghan to execute this. We saw that with Spotify. There was, you know, a countdown clock, and when they only got 13 episodes out of the Sussexes, they gave them the chop. So there are sources that are tailing the Daily Mail and Eating Confidential that Meghan has a list of very high-profile guests scheduled to participate in her new podcast. But does she? Very high-profile guests usually have their diaries filled months in advance. Meghan should know. She used to be one.
Ouch.
I believe she's got the title executive producer on this, which doesn't really impress me, because every streaming series you see, Kinsey, and it has a big star in it, they are an executive producer, and the 6 other actors that are there are executive producers. So it seems to be it comes with the territory.
Yes, but I would say that during the last series, there were 17 producers and executive producers. So I expect she's probably going to have less cooks in the kitchen, because I think that complicated. That was one of the reasons why it took them so long to get content out, because too many people had a say in that final product.
Let's talk about Rebel Wilson, shall we? First of all, she caused problems in the big showbiz divorce of the moment, and now royal allegations.
Yes, so Rebel has said that, I still have a hard time saying the word orgy, but in Rebel Wilson's new book, Rebel Rising, she says that she got thrown a last-minute invitation to a tech billionaires party, and the person that invited her was 15th or 20th in line to the British royal throne. He said, we need more girls. You should come to this big party. You know, it's high profile. You're going to have a great time. She said she goes to the party, somebody enters the room with a tray. She thought it was candy. Rebel, I can relate to you here. She got excited. And one of her friends was like, no, that's an illegal substance. That is an illegal substance. You do not want to go there. And he said, this is usually around the time that the orgy starts. Not my favorite word, and I apologize to my grandmother in case she's watching this. Now, Rebel says at this point she understands what the Windsor meant by they needed more girls. To her credit, she exits. She does not want to see where the night's going to take everybody else. But now a big question mark over who this individual could be.
Right. Well, let me help you there.
Creating more trouble.
I Googled the line of succession in 2014, which is the time she was talking about, and between 15 and 20 in line to the throne, we had Zara Tindall, Mia Tindall, David Armstrong-Jones, who's Viscount Linley, Charles Armstrong-Jones, who was 14 at the time, Margarita Armstrong-Jones, who was 11, and Lady Sarah Chatto. Obviously, we don't know if she was necessarily talking about any of those, and we haven't asked for them to respond to this, but those are who were between 15 and 20 in line to the throne at that time.
Kinsey,
thoughts and prayers to their publicists.
Yeah, thanks, Kinsey. Really appreciate your time and staying up for us. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll leave it
Thank
there.
you.
Happy St. George's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because Kinsey's talking about orgies there. Prisoners, I never thought of this. Men's prisons used to only be staffed by men, so the prison warders were men, but now no more.
Really?
Yeah, they're women now. And the question is, why are so many female guards having sex in jail with prisoners? That's the question, a double-page spread in the Mail today. One officer had a baby with her inmate lover. They have no time to see they have the time to see who's vulnerable, the prisoners, with the women. One woman sneaked into her lover's cell on Christmas Day. Another had an inmate cell number tattooed on her thigh. As the number of officers having illicit relationships with convicts jumps by 50%. That's not right, is it?
I'd say stop having female officers.
That's what I would say
Right here,
as well.
right now. Add that to the long list of things that are wrong.
Yeah, and I suppose the reason it's there is that they haven't got enough manpower, recruitment, literally manpower, to man male prisons. So a really bad situation there. Let us know your view. gbnews.com/your say. Paul Coit with his say on the sports news.
And all things George related.
Yes.
After this.
Famous George's birthdays he's going to talk about after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Now, buses replaced trains between Airdrie and Bathgate again today for emergency engineering works on the M621 in West Yorkshire. The westbound entry slip road's closed at junction 7 from the A61 at Sturton, where someone's broken down. On Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle is closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road to clear a spillage. It's been ongoing since yesterday afternoon. Buses replaced trains between Llandudno and Llandudno Junction of a signalling problem. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed westbound from the A522 at Uttoxeter to the A521 at the Blythe Bridge roundabout after an accident, with delays towards there and as you divert. And on the M4 west of London, the inside lane's closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from Heathrow to Heston, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Gloria Di Piero. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Right, let's get the latest on Nottingham Forest. They are kicking up a stink. Why are they doing that, Paul Coit?
Oh, these 3 penalty decisions that weren't given against Everton, which Nottingham Forest are now saying that everybody's against them and the Premier League is against them, and that the VAR Stuart Atwell, being a Luton fan, was obviously deciding against them. It's nonsense. It's like they're doubling down on this.
But everybody is against them now.
Oh, yeah, well, the thing is, they're going to go, yeah, everybody's having a go. Well, yes, you're right. They want the VAR audio now to be released, which probably will be because they do that every month anyway, and they're still considering their options. What options do they have, quite frankly? So now the Premier League have come back and said, well, we're very unhappy with what you're saying, and there's a chance that then they can get fined, but are they, can you imagine if they come back and they get more points taken away?
Points?
Never going to happen. I mean, that's never going to happen, but they just need to just try and... There's no agenda.
OK. It was the Laureus Sports Awards last night. I wasn't asked to host those. No, were you asked to host them?
I wasn't either. No, I wasn't either. So obviously they don't really count. But they were. You know why? It's because they're in Madrid.
Who won what?
Sportsman of the Year, Novak Djokovic. Not really. Sportswoman of the Year was Aitana Bonmati, the Ballon d'Or footballer. Team of the Year was Spain's women's football team. Are you underwhelmed so far with the Laureus Awards? How are you feeling about my Laureus Awards?
The Spain women's football team, that seems a bit late to be awarding them.
Yeah,
is that
I suppose, yeah.
You're on, yeah.
The breakthrough of the year was Jude Bellingham, which is great because, you know, he's playing in Madrid. Fantastic footballer.
Yeah.
Comeback of the year. I don't know whether they usually do a comeback of the year, or whether that's just done especially for Simone Biles. But there we are, the Laureus Sporting Awards, and there's Novak there going up to pick up his awards at the illustrious European Football Awards.
Now, so here we are. We're on St George's Day.
Yes, sir.
It is Tuesday, April 23rd.
Yes.
And you have, to mark St George's Day, you are doing what?
I'm very excited because it's famous Sporting George's, and I have a feeling that this is probably going to take the country by storm as we do this.
OK.
So I have a list of 5, and I've even brought...
Are they English sporting?
They are, well, not necessarily.
OK.
But they are Sporting Georges.
OK.
So they might not be English.
That's
a couple
fine.
are. So I will describe the Sporting George to you, and you have to tell me who you think the Sporting George is. Are you ready for this?
It could be a George or Jorge. Or...
No, they're all George.
OK, right.
They are George. Don't worry, there's no Jorge.
OK.
I've avoided the Jorge.
name.
Exactly. Should we go with number 1?
Yes.
I feel like Frank Muir. There we go. The first one, Eamonn's favourite footballer of all time. Who is that?
Oh, Georgie Boy, Best.
George Best, number 1.
He's from Northern Ireland.
There he is, and there's George. OK, so Northern Ireland. But his name's George, and he's wearing red and white, so that works.
OK.
Right, next one. Former world heavyweight boxer who fought Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle has a grill named after him. Who is it?
George Foreman.
Yeah.
George Foreman is correct.
Oh, phew.
Was it the grill or was it the Rumble in the Jungle?
Obviously, I
don't know.
It was
the grill. There he is. There's George Foreman there. By the way, how do you think this is going so far?
That's
Yeah,
going
I'm
good.
enjoying it.
We like
Going
the
well.
George quiz.
OK, number 3, 26-year-old British Formula One driver with Mercedes, came 6th in Shanghai at the weekend. George who? George... Oh, wait.
Oh, what, we have to get an answer?
Yeah, we'll have to sit here all day.
He's English or British or...
Yeah, he's English. Well, can we put the picture up so maybe that will help? There he is.
No idea.
I don't know that one.
It's George Russell.
Oh, of course.
Never heard of him.
It's George Russell. OK, fine. Right, there we go. Number 4. Former Arsenal player, successful manager who also
George
managed...
Graham.
Let's have a look. There he is.
Yo.
Look at those.
He was a hard man, wasn't he?
He was a hard man.
As a player and a manager.
What do you think? That suede, that coat there? That's not bad, is he?
Oh,
He
it's
looks
lovely,
$1 million.
yeah.
Gorgeous George.
Mac there.
And finally, one more. Flamboyant Cockney darts player. Loved a bit of bling. World darts runner-up 1980 and 1994. Eamonn's got it on the tip of his tongue. Who is it?
Barry George.
No!
No, that's the alleged murderer of Jill Dando.
It's not.
Oh, is it not?
No. But Boy George.
Yes, exactly.
Boy George.
Boy George. Barry George. We're going for... Tell me, Isabel.
No, I don't know.
Bobby George.
Bobby George!
Oh, there you go.
See, but there he is. Look at that.
I was just waiting for George North, of course, the acclaimed rugby Wales star. My husband will be screaming at the TV
Well, I'm
right
sorry,
now.
but I can only fit 5
George
in.
North.
Maybe I'll do more sport,
Georgie.
maybe some general celebrity Georges.
I do like the name George. Gorgeous George.
Gorgeous George.
No, and the song, Georgie, Georgie.
They call
him the Belfast boy. They say, Georgie, Georgie, keep your feet on the ground.
Yes.
Georgie, Georgie, would you listen to the sound? Georgie, Georgie, put a
light on the name.
Play the game.
There we are.
Back after the break.
Lovely.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The perception of a crime being committed is not based on whether that person intended to commit a crime or not, but whether the victim, in inverted commas, or anybody else for that matter who happened to hear whatever was said, determines that it was motivated by malice or ill will. Most of these things come out in heated exchanges or in, very casual exchanges. And then somebody says, oh, I'm offended or I'm hurt or I'm whatever because this was clearly malicious and it's against me as a black person or a transgender or sexuality, whatever it might be. And somebody says, I perceive this to be motivated by hate. Now, at that point, what is the reasonable test that anybody could apply as to what was in somebody's mind at the time? You don't know what I'm thinking now. I don't know what you're thinking now. Why is it that a crime can be committed on the basis of what somebody is alleged to be thinking?
Well, that's also how discrimination often works, because people have worked out these days that saying something or sending an email like one I received some years ago that said, let's go round her place with pickaxe handles and balaclavas and see what we can do. Now, that's an email that was sent about me. People have worked out that you don't do that. But from the circumstance of what happens, if racial taunts were being shouted, if taunts about someone's protected characteristic were being shouted in the run-up to what then happened, it would be pretty obvious that that was a hate crime.
But we know, for example, that street preachers have been arrested merely for quoting the Bible and without actually intending, anything beyond that.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got Andy Williams, the political commentator, and the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire, and they've got the newspapers in front of them. And the Rwanda bill, Andy, do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's passed. That's an achievement in one sense from Rishi Sunak, but the proof is going to be in the pudding. And really, I think this is going to be a policy failure in the sense that I don't think it will actually stop. I don't think it will be the deterrent they believe it will be. Yes. And I don't think it's going to curb the numbers in the way they think it will. And I think that will end in a political failure because Rishi Sunak has bet the house on this big time.
Well, meanwhile, Scarlett, there is a tenfold increase in migrants from Vietnam.
I know.
Why?
Nobody seems to know. I mean, you know, one scours the newspapers. That whether smuggling gangs are sort of pretending that when they come to Britain, they'll have a great life. I mean, it seems completely and utterly mad. And as far
all those people that were killed in
I was just looking it up in the lorries,
in Essex.
I know, 39 Vietnamese migrants. Yeah, they were trafficked in from Romania.
They were economic migrants.
I mean, I think most people leaving Vietnam are economic migrants, and there is a real problem about people who think that they're going to have a better life here. I mean, there's a wonderful film called Io Capitano, which is Italian. It means I'm captain, about a Senegalese guy and just how difficult it was for him to get to Italy. And interestingly, I mean, it was done to say to the Italians, look what these people suffer. But actually, it's now being shown in Senegal to say, don't go. Don't go. This is what's going to happen to you. You're going to get to Libya. You're going to be jailed. You could die on the way. I mean, it's those sort of things that are actually much, much better than a Rwanda bill. Can I say one thing about when they say that they tried to stop the Rwanda bill? The two main things that were holding it up was that the Lords felt that you couldn't say Rwanda is going to be a safe place in perpetuity, which seems a reasonable thing. And the other thing was that people who'd fought with us, like Afghans, shouldn't be sent to Rwanda.
Well, there's been a form of words that was sort of approved by the Lords in the end. The only tweak, really, that was made to the bill, so a sort of minor concession on that. I don't know if any of you have been through Calais in recent months. I went through it at the end of half-term. We were driving back from Holland, getting the Eurotunnel through, and we stopped off at one of the supermarkets as we were before we embarked. Everywhere we looked, groups of young men, all looked not much older than my son, all looked as though they were from sort of West Africa, places like that, all dressed in dark clothes, trying to sort of find their way across and actively trying to get onto lorries. I mean, openly, not even hiding it. It was kind of like and everywhere you look, tented camps, not just in the alleged jungle, but this whole area of Calais. Huge problem, and didn't look like it was getting any better, that's for sure.
Andy,
Maybe this will change things.
How old are you, Andy?
32.
32. When would you regard yourself as being old?
I need to tread so carefully here, don't I? I think
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I used to think 50 was the most ancient age you could ever reach until you get there.
I don't feel old, and I find it strange sometimes when people sort of say, oh, you know, I have friends who say, God, I'm in my 30s now and everything's going so fast, and before we know it, it's like, actually, no, like, life is short, yes, but it also, to me, feels quite lovely and long, and I think it's worth just enjoying the time.
Until you have kids and you're tired.
Well, that's true, I don't have kids yet, so...
Other responsibilities. But, Scarlett, people's idea of what is old, the actual age that is old, has got higher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for a start, the older you are, I mean, Andy goes 32, I'm quite old. To me, 32, a baby. Frankly. Yeah. I mean, and the older you are, you then put being old as above it, and whether because we tend to be much healthier. You know, I remember people saying, oh, 50's the new 40. But I mean, you know, I I have a friend of mine, he's 82, who's a documentary executive producer. And when she was 80 and she brought out Putin and the West, some poor journalist said to her, well, obviously, you know, now that you're 80, this is your swan song. She was furious, absolutely furious. I've already started work on the next one. I mean, she's doing Israel-Palestine and has just been on a hostile environment course to get there. I mean, actually, it does show that this chronological age isn't much, that actually it's the drive. I mean, she does make me feel completely exhausted, and I am considerably younger.
Yeah, it is interesting, though. You look at people and 80, no problem to them at all. Some people 55, they feel they're ready for the grave.
Yeah, and I you know, obviously that to some extent it's a bit of a lottery in that respect. My partner's grandma came over the other weekend to show us how to do some very basic things in our garden, right? Because we've just got a garden for the first time, and she was going at it for 4 or 5 hours.
Gosh.
She plays golf 3 times a week. She
How
does
old is
yoga in her early 80s.
Wow.
And she is amazing. I mean, my partner, who's in her early 30s, was more knackered than Gillian was by the end of it. So there you go.
So according to this study in Berlin, pensioners believe old age now starts at 75.
Right.
It's hard. I mean, I think my dad's turned 75 and I have noticed he's started to look a bit frail. And I'm starting to do that thing of feeling a bit protective.
Yeah.
Suddenly we start to feel like the generation that's worrying about them rather than they're the generation worrying about us. He's probably watching and going to be in trouble for that. But,
so 75 is now regarded as when you get old.
But I also think the thing about retiring, I mean, I think that when people no longer had to retire at 60 or 65, and I know some people are desperate to retire, a lot of friends of mine are retired, but actually the people who aren't retiring, they've got the energy and things like, I mean, you know, playing golf, not that I play it at all, but having a proper life. And it's, I mean, you know that things like loneliness are just age you, and make you miserable and make you ill.
Shift work.
Well, poor old Isabel, who's sort of...
I've aged exponentially since starting here.
I think company is very important, and, you know, interests in, as you mentioned, golf there, whether it's football or, you know, bowls or whatever it is, all very, very important. Alcohol's not doing people any good, Andy. They started keeping figures in 2001, and since then, there's a 33% jump in deaths from alcohol. 10,048 people died from alcohol-specific causes last year.
Yeah, and I think, look, I love a drink. I love a glass of wine. I think pub culture is a brilliant thing about Britain on St George's Day. I'm sure that's going to be enjoyed more so than on an average Tuesday. But it's just so sad to see this number of really avoidable deaths. And I think a lot of it is wrapped up in, I mean, loneliness is one thing, and I'm sure that was part of the cause in the pandemic. Also, the societal factors around drinking. You know, I don't know what to do with it, because our British society is more so, I think, than a lot of countries, quite obsessed with the culture around drinking.
Well, there was a report last week about women and cancer linked to drinking even just 1 glass of alcohol a day, and that definitely stopped me in my tracks.
You know, but what are you going to do? You're going to live forever and be miserable. You know, I mean...
No, but you can try to be healthy and then live a fuller life.
You see, well, I don't know. I mean, Ireland is a country that has, maybe some would say, too close a relationship with alcohol. But pubs and things, Scarlett, play a big factor in sociability, social life, community.
Absolutely.
There's so many other things. I mean, you could be dry as a stone and live till 110, or you might die at 75 and you've had a blooming good life in good company, surrounded by good friends.
Look, I completely agree with you. I'm not sure how much is the pub culture and how much is the drinking alone, actually. Is that the pandemic led to many, many more deaths. And, I mean, I remember talking to Alcohol Concern, and they said, you know, the problem isn't so much alcoholics, it's people in their 50s and 60s who've been drinking all their lives, and actually it kills their liver. Now, I mean, I did read the cancer thing like you did, and, you know, I've had it and I don't want it to come back. But the thought of going without alcohol, I love it.
Every day?
No,
well,
nothing like every day.
But it was said if you have a drink every day, you've got a huge risk as a woman. And I do like a glass of wine to unwind at the end of my day. But I'm now trying at least Monday to Thursday to be teetotal.
I think that's very disciplined.
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
good
yes.
so far this week. We're on Tuesday.
My thing is I don't drink alone, which actually meant that I lost weight and drank very little during the pandemic. I only drank on Zoom calls. But actually, it's. I mean, I do understand. And when you're socialising, you know, I had a friend round last night. I mean, of course we split a bottle of wine. I mean, that's just nice.
Let's finish by looking at a flying dog in Liverpool. It's known as Bugsy Seagull. Let's have a look at that. This is the Star reporting this one today. It's a giant seagull as big as a dog.
It's on the front of the Star this morning.
Oh, no, well, apparently we don't have it.
There you go.
And on the front of the Star, there is an appeal that if you know of or have seen a bigger seagull than this, the news desk wants to hear from you. So there you go.
It doesn't look that big, but there's no scale.
You know
really.
a tougher seagull.
I remember living in Bristol, where there is a huge seagull problem, and I was walking down the street, actually picked up a friend's baby from their nursery, and I felt something hit me in the back, and I thought someone had chucked something across the street, and a seagull had picked up a joint of rotten pork, I couldn't make it up, and had dropped it on me.
Oh,
and
my God.
And left the stench. It was awful. I had a baby with me, and it was just, I felt really, really attacked by this.
You're lucky it didn't pick you up after all that.
In season, I mean, don't they fly down and they take people's ice creams?
Well, they can do all those things. Scarlett, Andy, thank you both very much indeed. See the guys again in about 40 minutes' time.
For now, though, we're going to take a little look at the forecast. Alex Burker will tell you whether or not you need a brolly.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Many of us will see some decent sunshine today, although in the southeast here there is quite a bit of cloud and also some drizzly rain. This pushing in across eastern parts of England this morning, feeding into parts of East Anglia and towards London and Kent as we head towards the afternoon. Some showery outbreaks across parts of the southwest, otherwise lots of places having a dry day, particularly across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of sunshine and blue skies here. A bit of a west-east split in our temperatures in the east. Pretty cool at times, temperatures just about getting into double figures. Milder or warmer further west with lots of places in the mid, possibly even high teens. Any drizzly rain across parts of the southeast will clear away as we go through this evening, leaving a largely dry night and largely clear skies too. As a result, with the clear skies and some cold air making its way across the country, we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a dip. So there will be a bit of frost around first thing tomorrow morning, particularly where we have some lengthy clear skies and away from eastern parts, which are going to be a bit blustery as we go into tomorrow. So watch out for some blustery winds in the east and also some fairly frequent showers, which could turn a bit heavy across parts of East Anglia and perhaps towards Kent. Elsewhere, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, just 1 or 2 showers to watch out for, but plenty of blue skies yet again. Temperatures a little bit lower for many of us, so really feeling a bit cool considering it's the middle of spring. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Now, buses replaced trains again today between Airdrie and Bathgate for emergency engineering works. On the M621 in West Yorkshire, the westbound entry slip road's closed, where someone's broken down at junction 7 coming from the A61 to the southeast of Leeds. On Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle is closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road to clear a spillage. Ongoing since yesterday afternoon. Buses replaced trains between Llandudno and Llandudno Junction because of a signalling problem. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed westbound from Uttoxeter to Blythe Bridge after an accident, with delays towards the closure and as you divert. And on the M4 west of London, the inside lane is closed eastbound where there's an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from Heathrow Airport to Heston Coursing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, very good to see you. 8 o'clock is the time on this Tuesday morning. It is St George's Day, and this is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster. Welcome on board.
Yeah, wherever you're joining us from, you are very welcome. Our top story this morning, the Rwanda bill is passing through Parliament. It is a historic, far-reaching piece of legislation and set to become law after 8 hours of debate last night.
It's been a 5-month wait, but finally the Safety Rwanda bill is law after battle with peers. But when will the first migrant flights take off?
Happy St George's Day. We'll be looking at the meaning and celebrations, if you're English, behind your patron saint.
And there's a royal birthday today.
Yes, happy birthday to Prince Louis. He turns 6 today, the youngest child of the Prince and Princess of Wales. 4th in line to the throne, was born on this day in 2018. But there is something a little different about this year, so find out shortly.
And in sport this morning, in the Championship, Leeds United are back in the automatic promotion places after beating Middlesbrough 3-0 last night. With the World Championship at the Crucible, 4-time champion Mark Selby has questioned his future in the game. And after the huge success of the St George's Day quiz, stop laughing, name the famous sporting George, we'll play the new version, which is named the famous celebrity George.
Ooh. Morning. Whilst it is the middle of spring, it's not necessarily going to feel it, with a bit of a cool feel for some of us and a bit of rain at times too. I'll have more details coming up.
Well, after 5 months of deadlock, the Rwanda bill has finally passed through Parliament last night, and it's poised to become law after peers ended their standoff over the controversial policy.
The showdown comes after the Prime Minister declared that enough is enough and said MPs and peers will sit through the night to get the bill passed, and that is exactly what happened.
It designates Rwanda as a safe country, and it will allow the government to deport asylum seekers straight to there. We're now joined by our political editor, Christopher Hope. Never thought we'd see the day, so it's through. It'll be law.
Yeah, it's law. It'll go to the King shortly. That means it is law. And then the battle with the court starts all over again. And morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Yeah, a big battle last night in the House of Commons. 5 iterations of ping pong, the most since 2005, and some terrorism legislation. What that means is the Commons were saying do one thing, the Lords were saying no, and it went to and fro like a battle with a grumpy teenager about eating their sprouts, until finally the Lords gave in and they agreed to go ahead with and they folded on a key measure about guaranteeing the safety of Rwanda. And so we have it, that we have this Safety of Rwanda bill is passed into law. We have words from the Prime Minister today on the way to Poland with some journalists. He says this will deter vulnerable migrants from making perilous crossings and break the business model of the criminal gangs who exploit them. And that's the point. What they want this to happen is to start flying people arriving here illegally straight away, or pretty much straight away, back to Rwanda, thousands of miles away from where they started, to show that these gangs, if you come to this country illegally, if you jump the queue, to quote the Prime Minister, you are going a long way away from here. And already the hotels and the property and the air and the property they'll be living in Rwanda are ready to receive them. But can it happen? We're told it's a 10 to 12 week wait by the Prime Minister. That's because each one will face individual legal battles about why they shouldn't be going there. So there's a big struggle going ahead. Not until mid or late July will the first flights take off, and that clock is ticking. Eamonn and Isabel, the election we expect in November. So will there be a drumbeat, a steady rhythm of flights taking off? We'll wait and see.
Your analysis on why Rishi Sunak's gone so big on this, and I asked the Minister a little bit earlier on, because when you go through the list of detractors, really, including him when he was Chancellor, and really, frankly, quite lukewarm to it, we've got the Home Secretary allegedly calling it bat ... although he claims he can't remember saying that. You have Andrew Mitchell, who was on the programme yesterday. He wrote on the Conservative Home website 2 years ago that he thought this was flimsy. You had Suella Braverman, who was on yesterday, saying this isn't going to work. Why has he decided to nail himself to the cross on this, I suppose?
It goes back to January last year, wasn't it, when he came up with Stop the Boats as one of the 5 targets for his premiership. Back then, he was 3 months into being Prime Minister. Of course, he was against it, I think, back in 2022 when he was Chancellor, Isabel, on the grounds of cost, and he was concerned about the cost of it. But I think now he recognises that it is upsetting. It's a small number of people proportionally to the large numbers of illegal migrants coming here every year, well into the hundreds of thousands. It's typically 40 or 50,000 a year crossing the south coast. But he recognises that idea that it shows that we can't control our borders. It betrays that reason why many voted for Brexit back in 2016. And he has nailed himself to a cross on delivering this. He didn't say, I'm going to reduce it by a third, which he has done because of the Albania deal. I'm going to stop the boats. And so he has to do this and make it work. The problem is he's lost control of this target, because the political future of this is now tied up in the courts, and the courts might string it out for as long as possible. Ideally, what should happen is the government should say, the next 500 people arriving here but in small boats, you are going to Rwanda. He can't say that, because lots of people who arrived here are already sitting in hotels waiting to be processed. He needs to be much more front-footed, but he hasn't been so far. I would say some of the blame lies with him. He had 3 or 4 days before Easter when he could have whacked this through the House of Commons, through the House of Lords. He didn't do that. He waited another month, and time is running out before what looks like a Labour election victory, if the polls are right, and they will stop the scheme altogether.
Lots of questions about whether they'll do that or not. We've got Yvette Cooper coming on for Labour to answer that very question a little bit later on. For now, Christopher Hope, thank you.
April 23rd it is today, and that means it is St George's Day. If you are English, communities across the country are gathered to celebrate England's patron saint.
So red crosses are flying against white backgrounds. Knights are dusting off their chainmail. Yet some are still asking, who is St George and why should we celebrate him?
Well, we're now joined by GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis in Nottingham. Nice flag behind you.
Yes, well, the story of St George as our patron saint goes back to at least the 14th century, and long before English knights were wearing the red cross of St George as they rode into battle, St George's story was being told in a different place. That's because historically St George can be traced back to the roots of a Roman soldier who was killed for defending his Christian views in what was called Cappadocia, modern-day Turkey. We, of course, know the the story of St. George, a knight slaying a dragon to save a princess. And now when we talk about St. George, the dragon that English society is wrestling with is, should we celebrate St. George? And if so, to what extent? Now, the Royal Society of St. George, which organises countless events for today as well as for the weekend before St. George's Day, they say that too often patriotism is mistaken for nationalism. Nationalism often serves to tear countries apart. Patriotism, they say, brings countries together. Patriotism is often seen to be a flag that is flown by the right of English politics. But I suppose today in Nottingham, in one of England's most left-leaning cities, it is Nottingham that has the biggest English flag, the biggest St. George's cross. So I think that really does show that whatever side you fit onto, patriotism and being proud of this patron saint doesn't need to be a political issue.
Come rain or shine, Colin from Colton in Nottingham will celebrate St George's Day. He's been decorating his home with the St George's Cross for 30 years.
It matters because 23rd of April is St George's Day and we're being forgotten about, and we've got to show our identity and show our patriotism.
In the city centre, size matters. England's biggest flag covers Nottingham's council house. It appears every year. Many welcome it, some are indifferent.
I think it's amazing. I do. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's proud for something in our country.
I think it's really good to see it up there. It's good to see a celebration of England, the country.
It's a flag.
Yeah, don't really.
I didn't even realise it was there, if I'm honest with you.
The red cross against white is St George's emblem and the nation's flag.
St. George has been celebrated as England's patron saint since the 14th century. But long before English knights wore the red cross over their armour while riding into battle, his story was being told in other parts of the world.
Legend states that George was a dragon-slaying knight. History traces him to modern-day Turkey, a Roman soldier who died defending Christianity. In London, the Royal Society of St George, a patriotic but non-political group, paraded with hundreds of cadets at the weekend. Nick Dutt is chairman.
A lot of our fundamental beliefs and things that we hold dear are being undermined. So I think it's important we come together and celebrate him as a unifying factor.
Here at the Cenotaph, England's fallen heroes are honoured alongside the patron saint. Laying a wreath ahead of the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings, D-Day veteran Henry Rice, a proud Englishman aged 98.
We were taught all this. We were so proud just to be English. St George, yeah, he's a great guy, isn't he?
Patriotism is sometimes criticised. English history isn't perfect, but a community of all cultures can cherish St George. Back in Carlton, Colin's raising a different flag with a traditional Anglo-Saxon dragon.
Happy St George's Day! Have a great day!
Will Hollis, GB News in Nottingham.
Well, here in Nottingham, there is going to be a St George's Day party at a local pub organised by the Royal Society of St George here for Radford, a part of Nottingham. And if you do want to find out what is happening around the country for St George's Day, it might be a Tuesday, but there are plenty of things happening. The best way to find out is just by checking on the Royal Society for St George's website.
Excellent, well, excellent. You have yourself a good St George's Day, my friend. Thank you.
Glad to see you got the memo on the outfit as well. I've done the same thing myself. Happy St George's Day. There you go. Very good.
Have a good day. And if you are planning something today, let us know. Get in touch with us and or send us a picture of anything you've prepared or what you're doing. And have a good day.
Yeah,
of course, Stephen and Ellie, after 9 o'clock, we're going to be live to them in, where are they? Dartford. They're in Dartford, OK? So there's a bit of a thing going on there, and we'll be covering that live for you, and indeed throughout the day here on GB News.
Yeah, and send in wherever you are celebrating today to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Excellent. Well, the Prime Minister, you heard earlier from Christopher Hope, is set to visit Germany. He's going to announce £500 million military aid package to Ukraine. That's the largest provision of munitions so far. 400 vehicles, 60 boats, 1,600 strike and air defence missiles, 4 million rounds of ammunition, all in the package.
A former parliamentary researcher and another man have been charged with spying for China after an investigation by counter-terrorism police. 29-year-old Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, who's 32, have been charged under the Official Secrets Act. Both will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Friday. The Metropolitan Police say the allegations are very serious.
Children as young as 3 are being coerced into sexual abuse acts online, according to a report by the Internet Watchdog Foundation. The organisation said opportunistic internet predators were directing children remotely and often recording them.
Vehicle breakdowns rose by 9% last year due to, wait for it, potholes. That's according to new data by the RAC. Despite the government promising over £8 billion in extra funding to fix potholes over 11 years. It's estimated the cost of bringing our roads up to scratch is £16.3 billion.
It's amazing how you actually notice when a road has been repaired. I was on the A3 the other day, came to the roundabout at Wimbledon and suddenly went, let's go round this again, because it was tarmacked.
Nice.
It was resurfaced, and it's such a rarity to drive on a beautiful piece of tarmac, but £16.3 billion to get the rest of the country up to scratch.
Not going to get that, are we? So we just get used to the potholes. What we're also
never happen.
Hoping to get used to is a few more of these around the place. This is our Trick Award that we won last year, and we have some very exciting news to share this morning, don't we?
Yeah, we got a nomination again this year, so they thought we won it last year, so we must be good enough to be in again for this. So Best News Programme category they're looking at here, and you can decide what it is. Those are the GB News programmes up for grabs, up for
Well, it's just our programme, and then there's Eamonn up for Best Presenter, and then there's other categories as well. 4 nominations in total. Nigel Farage as well for News Presenter, and Camilla Tominey for her interview with Alistair Stewart. So
it's
thank you for your votes in
advance. No, it's not poll, it's poll-trick.org.uk. And the thing is, you know, if you can be bothered to do that, that makes a big difference. I wouldn't have come back and vision. I'd have just kept it up there so that we give the people the chance. Poll-trick.org.uk. We'd really appreciate it if you found time in your hearts and minds and on your computer to register a vote for us or any of our colleagues who are noted on that caption.
Plus, we really want to buy a trophy cabinet, don't we? So we can put some trophies in them here and show off to all our competition. Sock it to them. There we go.
The weather update. We go to Alex Burkle. Bit of a mixed picture over the country. Let's see.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Many of us will see some decent sunshine today, although in the southeast here there is quite a bit of cloud and also some drizzly rain. This pushing in across eastern parts of England this morning, feeding into parts of East Anglia and towards London and Kent as we head towards the afternoon. Some showery outbreaks across parts of the southwest, otherwise lots of places having a dry day, particularly across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of sunshine and blue skies here. A bit of a west-east split in our temperatures in the east. Pretty cool at times, temperatures just about getting into double figures. Milder or warmer further west with lots of places in the mid, possibly even high teens. Any drizzly rain across parts of the southeast will clear away as we go through this evening, leaving a largely dry night and largely clear skies too. As a result, with the clear skies and some cold air making its way across the country, we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a dip. So there will be a bit of frost around first thing tomorrow morning, particularly specifically where we have some lengthy clear skies, and away from eastern parts which are going to be a bit blustery as we go into tomorrow. So watch out for some blustery winds in the east and also some fairly frequent showers which could turn a bit heavy across parts of East Anglia and perhaps towards Kent. Elsewhere, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, just 1 or 2 showers to watch out for, but plenty of blue skies yet again. Temperatures a little bit lower for many of us, so really feeling a bit cool considering it's the middle of spring. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Great British Giveaway in the final week to see how your next holiday could be on us.
Yes, this is a great cruise for two, £10,000 in cash and a luxury travel gift, prize totalling £20,000. Here's how it could be yours.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for 2 worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come today, a special royal birthday.
Yes, Prince Louis is turning 6, but lots of royal fans will be disappointed. Find out why next.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
This new hate crime bill on women's issues, you think this is the least funny April Fool's joke in history?
Yeah, although the Scottish Government and the Scottish Police do seem to be trying to make a bit of a joke of it when, you know, their campaign Hate Hurts is fronted by a hate monster who's a sort of cuddly, bright red Muppet-style thing. And some of the things that Humza Yousaf said about it were from a soft play centre over the weekend. But yeah, it's really not a joke. It's not actually clever lawyers who know the wording of the law who enforce the law. It's the police. And the police have basically not been trained on this at all. There's a 2-hour online training course they're meant to have done, and lots of them haven't already done it. And we know from the way that the police have been talking about it that they're wildly overstretching what it might actually be to be, in particular, abusive, which is one of the words in the new law, and specifically on the issue of transgender identity. To claim that just noticing the fact that there are 2 sexes and that sex can't change is meant to be hateful, that, you know, even after years of trying to study it, I can't understand why people hold this belief. But it's part and parcel of a pattern of legal measures that the Scottish Government has either introduced or has sought to introduce. So it tried to introduce gender self-ID, but that was overruled by Westminster because it was out of the power of the devolved government. It's still attempting to bring in a conversion therapy law, which sounds nice but isn't nice. It actually criminalises proper ethical treatment of gender-confused youngsters. They're trying to say that men who have certificates saying that they're women count as women for a particular measure to do with public boards. And then this hate crime law, which tries to make it really difficult for someone to talk in a factual, reality-based, clear, understandable way about all these measures. It all adds up to a sort of an authoritarian attempt to deny the fact that human beings are mammals and come in 2 sexes, and that recognising that matters for women's rights especially.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go. How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
So we'd like to wish a very happy birthday to Prince Louis. The youngest of the Waleses is turning 6 today, and a lot of us were hoping, Cameron Walker, to see a brand new photograph of the young prince, as is tradition. But not so this year.
Yeah, it very much is tradition. We would usually get a photograph of the royal the night before the birthday, so the papers can have it for the front pages the next day. That has not happened for the first time ever since Prince Louis was born. I think we have to take a step back here. Remember, it is very unprecedented times. The Princess of Wales is still going through preventative chemotherapy. The last photograph Kensington Palace released of their family was on Mother's Day, which clearly was then killed by photo agencies because of the apparent manipulation of the image. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're a little bit spooked and the Prince and Princess of Wales are slightly more cautious when it comes to releasing photographs. And to be honest, do they really need the added stress of everyone, you know, minutely looking at a new photograph of their youngest child on his birthday? I think the answer to that is probably no.
It's disappointing, though, because he's got a lot of affection in the nation's heart because he is the cheeky chappy. We all think of him famously alongside his very famous great-grandmother, the Queen. Look at him there.
Yeah,
actually, George as well being a bit cheeky there, but he's the wayward son in the best possible way, possibly because he's just so little. I always like to see the progress over the years, so I'm disappointed myself, but I'll get over it.
And Queen Camilla last month told a passerby in the Isle of Man that Prince Louis is quite a handful, as you can see from that image there. Some people speculating that he was holding his nose in that image because of horse manure. I suspect he had just sneezed. That was at Horse Guards Parade during Trooping the Colour last year. But, of course, I think the most famous images are the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee, putting his hand over his ears because of the noise from the aircraft flying over Buckingham Palace. There was also videos of him having a little bit of a tantrum in the royal box, which the Princess of Wales very calmly dealt with.
Or what was she whispering to him? If you want those chocolates at bedtime, keep smiling, sit still.
I know, and that's it. But I think it shows that Prince Louis is a normal 5-year-old at the time, now 6-year-old child. This is him during the coronation celebrations. They all volunteered, the Waleses, at a local scout group in Slough, and Prince Louis almost tipped over a digger that he was driving with his father as well. So it's these little moments which I think the public love about the royal children.
I actually also think that it really demonstrates just how angelic George and Charlotte are. As a mum of children the same sort of age, I always think, how would my kids behave in that situation? And George and Charlotte always surpass expectations. They don't put a foot wrong. And Louis is just a bit more normal, I think, and relatable. But, yeah.
He's also younger.
He's a lot younger, yeah. But even at that time, George seemed quite sensible. OK, so we just have to wait, then, until we clap eyes on the littlest royal there. The Queen was out and about yesterday, toasting her father's regiment, looking very splendid herself.
She was, the Royal Lancers. She wore a outfit which was actually modelled on the Lancers' uniform. It was made by Fiona Clare, the designer, but very poignant for Her Majesty because the Royal Lancers was her father's regiment during World War II.
That's his tunic.
It is. So she got to see his tunic from the wartime, and he was actually quite badly injured during World War II. In 1942, he was in an armoured vehicle which was attacked by the Germans. His comrades were killed in that attack. He was taken as a prisoner of war and was a prisoner of war until 1945, early 1945, where he managed to escape. He was given a military cross medal as well. So I think The Queen is very proud of her father, the links to the military history her own family has. And, of course, as the Queen and wife of His Majesty the King, it's something which really runs true. She delivered a speech as well yesterday to the regiments where she joked about their capacity to drink beer as well. So she was in a very, very good mood yesterday, I think.
And we understand she's very much looking forward to Royal Ascot. The King hinting desperate to go. We don't know whether he will be able to, but it sounds as though all the noises are he's doing well with his treatment. And we talked about Kate still receiving her preventative chemo. The King's still, of course, undergoing his cancer treatment.
Absolutely. Royal sources have told me that the fact that we saw the King on Easter Sunday, we should see that as an indication that his treatment is moving in the right direction. But, of course, it's all done on doctors' advice as to whether or not he will be attending certain engagements in the future.
OK, Cameron, thanks very much indeed for that roundup there. Still to come, we've got Paul Coyte. He's here with the sports news and the Celebrity George quiz on this St George's Day after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced trains again today between Airdrie and Bathgate for emergency engineering works on the M74 in South Lanarkshire. The outside lanes closed northbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 1A from Rutherglen to Paulmaddy. There are queues towards there from junction 2A. The Fullerton Road turn on Merseyside. Balliol Road in Bootle remains closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road to clear a spillage. That's been closed since yesterday afternoon. On the M54 in Shropshire, there are eastbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from Shifnal to Albrighton. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 9 and 8 from Fareham to the Ersledon and Hambleton with queues towards there. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just want to make you aware, a big Premier League match tonight. Paul will tell you who it is and who may benefit.
Arsenal versus Chelsea tonight, so it's a huge game. But Chelsea,
yes.
Cole Palmer, who is the big star of Chelsea at the moment, 21-year-old, joint top scorer in the Premier League. looks like he might not be playing, which Arsenal fans will be rejoicing.
Is it illness or
apparently illness?
Injury? Yeah,
apparently illness. But often with illness, that means there's probably a chance that he will play. Mauricio Pochettino said yesterday that we are not just the Cole Palmer side. We are Chelsea Football Club, but it'd be so much better with him playing.
But it's Arsenal win this tonight, they will go 3 points clear.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so they're looking, they're just grinding it out. We're getting towards the edge, like Cliff Thorburn again, but we're getting there. And then then it's the North London derby on Sunday. Spurs
is it
away? So
what time's that?
2:30 Sunday afternoon.
Will you be at that?
I will. You see, look, I'm very calm about the whole thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right, it's St George's Day, Coity, and back by popular demand is another George quiz. Last time we had famous sporting stars with the name George. This time, famous celebrities.
Are you up for this?
We are so up for this.
OK, number one for St George's Day, famous Georges, film star who is the doppelganger for Eamonn Holmes.
George Clooney.
George Clooney there. There he is. Honestly, look at that.
No, that's a picture of me. We're getting one of George.
Is it? I can never tell the difference between the two. No. Look at that wry smile that you've got.
It would be great to present breakfast with George Clooney.
Do you know, when I met George Clooney, I thought...
there goes the quiz.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, well, he was a really lovely guy. The odd thing is, I bumped into him in a corridor and he was drinking a cup of coffee. You know what he does in the advert?
Espresso. Do you know his father was a newsreader?
Was he?
Yeah, he got good.
Rosemary Clooney was his aunt.
auntie.
Yeah, it was his aunt. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to play famous Eamons with him. What are the chances?
There you go.
Right, next one. Youngest Beatle who recorded My Sweet Lord. Very mystical. Which George is that? Come on.
George Harrison.
George Harrison is correct. Yes, there's George. There we are. The early George there from '64. OK, we'll go for another musical George. I forgot my bell, because Robert Robinson used to do this on what was it?
The school programme.
No, yeah, you used to... What was that?
Just
Top of the Form.
Top of the Form.
Was it?
No, Ask the Family used to do that. Ask the Family. There we go.
Right, another musical. I already know the answer.
OK, musical George.
George Michael.
No, I haven't even done the question.
You said another musical one.
No, you've got to wait there. Another musical George, who was the lead singer of Culture Club.
Boy George.
No, come on. George. The pressure is getting to the both. Who's Boy George?
I said that.
Did you say Boy George? OK, right. Right, fourth one. 41st President of the United States.
George.
Now, you've got to get this right.
George W. Bush.
It's correct answer. 1981 to 1989, there's George Bush there.
Because I introduced the 42nd President of the United States in Belfast.
Did you?
Clinton.
Yeah, William Clinton.
I thought you were going to say, and did George Bush, was he drinking coffee at the time? And said,
No.
You know what, Eamon, you look just like me.
Clinton said to me, could I say you're doing a mighty fine job?
Yes.
And I said, it's you, Mr. President, who's doing the mighty fine job.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we sort of like bonded.
And did you say God bless America straight after that as well?
No, we got rugby tackled. It was all very...
That's true. Right, final one. Cheeky ukulele-playing entertainer from Lancashire who was the UK's highest-paid entertainer in the 30s and 40s. Who was it?
When I'm cleaning windows. Which was
George.
Don't ask me this one.
George.
George, come on, Eamonn. George
Formby. There's George Formby. There he is.
Yeah.
Look, proper St George. George Formby there. Look at him entertaining the troops.
No, George isn't a name in vogue, though, nowadays,
yes,
is it?
Oh, it is again.
Yeah,
it is. There's lots of Georges
back in again.
Yeah, George is back in again.
Probably helped by Prince George.
Plenty of Georges, not many Pauls, not many Eamons, not many Stephens. You don't get many Daves.
Loads of Isabels.
Yeah, there's a few Isabels as well.
My granddaughter's Isabella. Yeah, they've just, it's back in.
There you go, it's back in.
So tell me this, are you doing anything for St George's Day today?
Well, I'll just be English all day. I'm going to spend the whole day being English.
Well, you and me meet up in the pub at lunchtime.
OK, let's do that. Will you be celebrating St George's Day today? Because you keep saying for the English,
anybody's
but
day.
it's for everybody.
Anybody's day.
OK, fine.
I'm all for that.
Pint of light and bitter, you and me.
Here's the question, viewers and listeners. Why are you not off today? Why is it not a national holiday? I just find it scandalous. Why is there not a petition? Why is there not a demand that today is a public holiday in England? These are weird.
We're weird. Well, I've got my outfit on. I'm sorry that you didn't decide to wear one. I wore green on St Patrick's Day in tribute to your country.
Because you all want to be Irish.
Expected you to do the same for me today, but
I can't wear red. You see, I'd get so much hassle.
And you didn't even try. You didn't even try. Just me flying the flag over here. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going through the papers, and then very shortly after that, we have Yvette Cooper coming on as well. Lots coming your way. Stay with us.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
There is a kind of a Mediterranean side to that as well, because my mother came from that side, you know, a big family. And I think there is that sense of community where family is kind of key. And I think that's really kind of what we sort of try and continue, really. I mean, certainly with children and stuff like that, you know, Sunday lunches were always, you know, the big thing.
Yeah, really. But if you go down the Old Kent Road today...
Very different. Very different, yeah. And that was quite some time ago as well, because we were very close to where the Thomas à Becket was.
Yeah, I know, the boxing upstairs and all the rest of it. Yep.
And I did go down there not so long ago, actually, and it really is very, very different. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. I think we have a different view of things.
Most people in London, Nicky, don't even know the names of the next-door neighbours.
No, true.
We've completely lost that sense of community that you grew up with, that you knew. I think it's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say sometimes I'm a bit guilty of it where I am now as well. You live in big houses, and I do see my neighbours, but, you know, it's not quite the same as it was back.
And I guess from that background, you're a teenager, you want to become a hairdresser.
Yeah,
that must have been quite a difficult call.
Yeah, that one was a really good call. My dad went, oh, God, what? I mean, it was just very funny. And certainly from the point of view of, you know, this was the early 70s. And so it wasn't really the kind of the choice of most people would do.
No, but you did. Why?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I went to a grammar school and I didn't do as well in the final exams, and I was kind of forced into sort of leaving. And you suddenly go, ooh, no idea what to do here, really.
Yeah.
But the idea of doing something in fashion, and, you know, I really kind of... I know that I was given some really good advice, actually, by somebody that said, just start at the bottom. Don't necessarily go to, you know, college or whatever. There may not be anything wrong with those, but just start at the bottom, go to the best place you can and start sweeping the floor.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joining us through the newspapers now. We say hello, welcome back to Scarlett Maguire and Andy Williams. MPs demand a review of carers' allowance after 34,000 of them were fined last year. Now, to get a carer is an achievement in itself. These people are never paid the rate that they deserve. What's going on here, Scarlett?
Actually, this is worse than what you're saying. Is these carers are people who basically they look after their mother, their husband, their whatever, and they're allowed to work to earn £150 a week to get a carer's allowance of £81. That's all they're allowed.
Yeah.
And they save the country millions.
So they're dressing these people, they're giving them medication, they're looking after them, and they get their 100 and whatever it is.
And then they go, no, but the £151, they're allowed to work outside the home.
That, right?
So these are people who are looking after normally relatives, you know, they're
saving the state a fortune.
And then what happens is that if they earn £1 over £150 a week, they lose the lot.
Right.
And then if they don't tell people, because they often don't know all the things, they then owe thousands and thousands. So you've got 34,000 carers were fined last year for earning more than £150 a week. I mean, it is absolutely appalling, right? It is, and these people are being fined thousands of pounds to come out of what? You know, and actually they're doing us an incredible favour because they're looking after, you know, they're looking
It's like a VAR system as well, you know, one millimetre offside and that's it, it goes against you.
Yeah.
No, we should cherish these people instead of penalising them.
We really should.
Here we are, St George's Day, and a lot of people could be going to a pub. So there's a pub, I think, in East London now, and its profits are on the up. It's called the Black Dog. Why is the profits on the up?
Because Taylor Swift, who has probably the most excitable, dedicated, active fan base in the world, Taylor Swift fans have been listening to her new album. Don't know if anyone else here has. And there is a song called The Black Dog, which is about a pub in Vauxhall that her then boyfriend went into. And he walked into the pub and she was tracking it on her phone, on her sort of Find Friends app. And she's sung, she's written this new song all about her heartbreak. So Taylor Swift fans have descended on this pub in Vauxhall, and the landlord's been pretty canny and started charging for merchandise, putting the price of the pints up. It's been rammed full of Taylor Swift fans, so...
Sorry, was she basically stalking?
So I think... so I haven't listened to the album, but my understanding is that this entire... And there's 31 tracks on this album, right? And it's all about her British ex-boyfriend and their breakup.
Was that Harry Styles or Tom Hiddleston?
She's
Which one
She's
was
had
it?
a lot of boyfriends, hasn't she?
Well, this is the guy, I think he's an actor, and they were together for 6 years, and it's all been very acrimonious, and she had, you know, this app Find Friends where you can see where your, you know, friends and family are. She still had it on, and she was sort of presumably crying under a duvet, looking at where he was going, and there he was walking into this quiet London boozer in Vauxhall.
And why is that a crime? Was that allegedly to meet up with somebody else or something? I don't really understand
I don't know. I think it was just her sort of, oh, I can see him going off and living his life. And anyway, now it's a shrine for Taylor Swift fans.
It's a shrine, not a crime. OK. Well, we have to go and check it out. It's the Black Dog in Vauxhall. And very good that he's turned that into a money-making scheme.
Absolutely, good on him.
Airline prices, Scarlett.
Yes.
Budget flights can be more expensive.
This is an incredible story, isn't it? Is that actually, as we all know, if we try and fly Ryanair or EasyJet, is that you get a price and then everything costs more. But it's almost impossible. I mean, unless you only travel with a tiny little bag that goes under the seat, that you will have to pay more. You have to pay more for taking a cabin bag, let alone putting luggage in the hold. And actually, what they say is by the time you've paid for everything, and then if you want a seat, if you want to sit next to your friend, then you have to pay extra for the seat. All of that, you might as well fly British Airways. I mean, it is incredible. I mean, British Airways, I do have to say, you know, used to be great. I mean, now you don't get food. I mean, British Airways is like flying.
It's a budget airline.
EasyJet and
it charges premium prices.
Yeah.
I was saying 2 weeks ago I was going to Glasgow, and a one-way ticket, business class, was £650.
To Glasgow?
Yes, for British Airways. It was actually from Glasgow to London, that way round. But Belfast as well, I keep on saying this, the price we have to charge. We were talking there going to Naples for 120 quid or whatever with British Airways. You could not get a flight getting you from Belfast to London for 120 quid. No way. Sort of 250, 280, something like that.
But if you fly with British Airways to, say, Istanbul or Jordan...
Yes.
I mean, I was going to fly to Istanbul. It was incredibly expensive, but somebody else was paying. And then they don't do, because it's only 4 hours, no entertainment, no food, no nice seats. So I just swapped to Turkish Airlines, which were half the price.
Yeah.
And did food, I got a movie.
They're a very good airline, Turkish Airlines as well.
Guys, can I interrupt and just bring our audience up to date? Reports coming from a French newspaper, La Voix du Nord, which says 5 migrants have died in the Channel. We're hearing that a police operation is underway. And, of course, all of this, the timing of this, just hours after the Rwanda bill, the flagship Rwanda bill, finally passed through the Commons very late last night. This really highlights, doesn't it, the extraordinary lengths that people go to, risking their own lives to get into this country, and highlights the urgency to try and deal with this problem. I just want to get some reaction from you on the panel. First of all, to you, Andy. I mean, we've had this, we had another loss of life earlier in the year. Will the Rwanda bill finally put an end, do you think, to these sorts of terrible tragedies?
Well, I think, as you said, it shows the extraordinary lengths people go to. And actually, what this says to me is that forget the narrative. Most people who are in these small boats coming across the channel, they're not doing it just because they fancy earning a bit more money. These are people who are risking their lives, in most cases, to seek a better life. Now, whether you agree or disagree whether they should be allowed here, the human cost is huge. And I just think it's very, very sad. And I don't think the Rwanda bill is the solution. I mean, again, look at the numbers. 24% rise in the number of people coming across in small boats so far this year, and 5 very sad losses of life overnight.
Well, we'll keep a close eye on those developments. We've got Mark White, who is going to be bringing us up to date on that situation. And we also have the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, on this programme in the next few minutes. You can give her response to those chilling reports from the Channel of 5 migrant deaths just overnight since the Rwanda bill was passed. OK, let's carry on with the pay-per-view and we can talk about the Trump trial, shall we? And both of you, I'm sure, will have views on this finally getting underway at front of the FT this morning. Scarlett, your thoughts on all of this? You know, this is the president, the payments, the porn star.
I mean, seriously... You know, 10 years ago, you would have said you couldn't make it up. That a former president of the United States is being accused of not just giving hush money to a porn star so that she wouldn't talk about their affair, which obviously she has now started talking about their affair, but actually then pushed it in as a business case so that nobody found out about it. Looking at it, I mean, obviously one doesn't know quite what is going to happen in the trial and what his defence is, but she is loving it. I mean, she is coming out and saying, this is what happened and I'm not the only one it happened to. And the strangest thing is the people really, really backing Donald Trump are the evangelicals. I mean, who believe in I mean, this is, you know, Trump who's on his 3rd marriage, but the evangelicals who actually believe in constancy.
Yeah, that's a hard one to fathom, Andy.
I think it's worth reiterating, this is not, you know, he's been on trial in civil cases before. This is a criminal trial.
Totally different.
If he's convicted, he literally could go to jail, perhaps for many years. He's a former president of the United States, and he might be, what, 6-7 months away from becoming president again. I mean, it's just surreal.
So we could have a situation whereby in November he wins the election in the United States of America from behind bars.
Yeah, it's not beyond the bounds of...
transfer of power in January next year would involve him having to pardon himself before he could go from a jail room to the White House.
Well,
I mean,
yet another...
belief, but it might not happen. He may well not be convicted. He says he is innocent of all of this, and it's a witch hunt.
Guys, got to say goodbye to you because we're going to cross a big political interview with Yvette Cooper after this short break. So thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced trains again today between Airdrie and Bathgate for emergency engineering works on the M74 in South Lanarkshire. There are long northbound delays after an accident earlier between junctions 2 and 1A near Ruther Glen. The queue's taking over half an hour from junction 4 at Maryville. Now on Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle remains closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road. It's been closed since yesterday afternoon. Dealt with a spillage on the M54 in Shropshire. There's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from Shifnal to Old Brighton, causing queues. It's also slow westbound past the scene. On the M4 in Swansea, there's a lane closed on the westbound exit at junction 44 at Lamps Hamlet for emergency repairs, that causing queues. And on the M27 in Hampshire, the outside lane's closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 9 and 8 near Fareham, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, just to bring you up to date on that breaking news this morning, we are getting reports coming into us from a French newspaper that 5 migrants attempting to cross the Channel have died and that a police operation is underway. And this, of course, just hours after the Rwanda bill has become legislation. Let's get the thoughts and reactions this morning of the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. First of all, your thoughts on this developing story?
Good morning, Isabel. Good morning, Eamonn. Well, this is more news of tragic lives being lost. It shows how dangerous these boat crossings are. They put lives at risk and they're undermining our border security. And criminal gangs are making huge profits from these dangerous boats and from putting lives at risk in this way. And that's why we urgently need proper action to tackle these dangerous boat crossings.
Is the Rwanda bill, Shadow Home Secretary, proper action?
Well, the problem with the Rwanda scheme is that it's an extortionately expensive gimmick that is costing around £500 million for a plan which is to send just around 300 asylum seekers to Rwanda. And that is less than 1% of people arriving in this country. There is no plan at all for the 99%. It ends up being around £2 million per asylum seeker. And we should be putting that money, frankly, into our border security instead, into going after these criminal gangs who are making profits from effectively a trade in people. We should be smashing those criminal gang networks instead with that investment.
So can I go on?
Where would the Rwanda bill go under a prospective Labour government if you got into power? What would you do with it?
So we won't do the Rwanda scheme. Instead, what we'll do is replace it with a new plan to boost border security and to fix the chaos that the Tories have left in the asylum system. So that must include new cross-border police, British police and investigators working right across Europe, not just along the French coast, but actually working right across Europe to go after the criminal gangs. We have to stop the boats reaching the French coast in the first place, actually tackle some of the roots of the problems, and that's not happening happening at the moment. We would also have new security agreements and new counter-terror style powers to be able to go after those gangs. And we need a new fast-track asylum system for safe countries with a proper new returns and enforcement unit, because part of the problem at the moment is there's no enforcement of the existing rules, and so you end up with, we've had a drop of nearly 50% in the number of returns under the Conservatives. Well, that's just the system not working. We've got to reverse that.
You haven't mentioned plans, though, to offshore migrants. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is part of the spectrum of options that you are keeping at your fingertips, are you not? And I just wonder, if it does turn out that this Rwanda bill is a success, that it does act as a deterrent, would you then keep the bill after all this taxpayers' money, as you see it, has been spent?
Well, the problem with the Rwanda scheme, and bear in mind this is there was announced 2 years ago. They told us they were implementing this 2 years ago, and they have just kept writing checks to Rwanda. So with every step along the way, they simply write more checks. The first thing that they're going to do now that this latest piece of legislation has been passed, and bear in mind this is the third Conservative law on channel crossings in the last 2 years, but the first thing they're going to now do is write another £50 million check for Rwanda, even though currently more Home Secretaries than asylum seekers have been sent to Kigali. They're going to write that check, and at every stage they're going to keep writing the checks. So that's why, no, we won't do the Rwanda scheme, because we think we shouldn't be continually writing checks to the Rwandan government. We should be using that money instead to strengthen our border security in the UK.
Is offshoring migrants still part of your possible plan to tackle the issue of illegal crossings?
So there are different forms of offshoring and different ways of doing things. We've always said that we would look at anything that works. And for example, the Ukraine scheme, that was a form of offshore decision making where people had visas before they came to the country. We also had the old Dublin scheme in which people were returned to other parts of Europe and had their asylum decisions taken there instead. So there have been different forms of offshoring. I think the important thing, though, is you have to make sure you've got something that's workable, something that's actually going to deliver change and actually tackle these dangerous boat crossings, rather than something that's just really about chasing headlines. Even the former immigration minister has said all the Conservatives are trying to do is get symbolic flights off before a general election. Well, that's not a serious plan when so much is at stake here.
Shadow Home Secretary, you've got a serious plan, you believe, for rural areas, and in the 2 minutes that we've got remaining here, the problem and the worry you have, and you'll be talking about this today, is the crime rate, which is surging at a much quicker rate in rural areas than urban areas.
Yeah, rural crime, as reported, is going up much more quickly than in urban areas, and yet nothing is being done. That's why we're setting out a new rural crime strategy that we will work with communities and police forces across the country on. It has to include additional rural patrols, police patrols, in neighbourhood police in rural areas, and also stronger laws on things like agricultural crime, where there's been this spate of organised crime targeting farm vehicles for things like GPS equipment. We can't stand for this. At the moment, in rural communities, very often people just feel nothing is done when things go wrong. We can't stand for that, and that's why we need this new action on rural crime, so our rural communities feel safe.
OK. We've got to leave it there. Yvette, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. That's Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary. Labour saying they're going to concentrate on rural crime. It's rising far too quickly compared to urban crime rates. Your views on that? Very, very well.
Yeah, lots of reflections coming up on the programme on, of course, today's date, the 23rd of April. It is St George's Day. Stephen and Elliot are out and about at a parade. We'll be catching up with them, and we'll also be taking a look at the rest of the day's news. So, as the time turns 9 o'clock this morning, our top stories are these.
Five migrants have died after falling from a small boat off the French coast. Mark White will have the latest.
The Rwanda bill passes through Parliament. The historic, far-reaching legislation is set to become law after 8 hours of debate last night.
Last night was a momentous occasion. We were told that the bill would never pass, that we'd never get it through, and the Prime Minister was determined to ensure that we got the bill through, and we did that last night. And
if you are English, a happy St George's Day to you today. We'll be looking at the meaning and the celebrations behind England's saint, and live from across the country, including Stephen and Ellie in Dartford.
Yes, we're here in Dartford to celebrate St George's Day, and it's going to be a great day here with so many people getting involved.
Yes, at lunchtime there's going to be 700 school children from across the county parading behind a large model of a dragon and St George. We'll have all the latest here from Dartford.
Morning. Whilst it is the middle of spring, it's not necessarily going to feel it, with a bit of a cool feel for some of us and a bit of rain at times too. I'll have more details coming up.
So we start this out with the breaking news this morning, and we have been hearing that 5 migrants have died trying to cross the channel. Let's get the very latest from our home and security editor, Mark White. The timing of this, of course, incredibly poignant, just hours after the Rwanda bill finally passed through the Commons.
Yeah, not long at all after that bill passed through Parliament. So it happened, we're told, at 1:45 a.m. So really just a matter of an hour or so after proceedings ended in Parliament. This boat pushed off from a beach at Wimereux, which is just north of Boulogne, further down the coast from Calais. It got into difficulties as the migrants there were trying to push this boat offshore. It's unclear at this stage whether those migrants got into difficulties as they were trying to clamber on the board or on the boat, or were on the boat and then fell off it. Those bits of detail will come a bit clearer, I think, as the morning progresses. But the information we have, as confirmed by French authorities, is that at least 5 people have drowned as they tried to make this crossing. Others were rescued. One person at least has been taken to hospital in a critical condition. And that search and rescue operation in the area, although it's pretty much concluded for those who they believe were in the water, is continuing, because we have another number of boats that have launched this morning. So 3 already, according to our sources, have left that same beach, Wimereux Beach, north of Boulogne. Another small boat left Calais at first light this morning, and 2 other boats attempted to leave Dunkirk. One of the boats turned back quite quickly. Another one is sitting off Dunkirk at the moment, not making much progress, possibly with engine difficulties. So an indication that whatever the government might do or say the Rwanda bill is intended to do in terms of a deterrent, the migrants are, for the moment at least, still coming.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. And they will continue to come, and this is terribly, terribly sad, it has to be said. But you know what? No one cares less. These poor people will have died. They'll have died in vain. They had a dream to come to this country. But we cannot solve the problems. We cannot solve the problems of this world. We cannot have Africa empty, come through Europe, and then everyone deposit themselves in this country. It's not going to work. So is the Rwanda bill a feasible option, or is it too literally dead in the water? The Prime Minister reckons 10, 12 weeks' time, flights will be, whatever form those flights will take, however big they will be, will leave England to go to Africa. What do you think? What is your view on all of this? And just sadly, these poor people who are dead, they are just some of many, many more who will die in that attempt to find safety.
Well, let's just reflect on that bill passing through Parliament. It's poised to become law after peers ended their standoff over the controversial policy, and the slowdown comes after the Prime Minister declared that enough is enough and said MPs and peers will sit through the night to get the bill passed, and that's what they did.
Right. Chris Hope with his view on all of this. So, Chris, is it now law?
Nearly law, Eamonn, that's right. It goes to the King Charles, he signs it off, and then formally it becomes law. And then the clock starts ticking on this 10 to 12 week timetable to get the first flights off towards the middle to the end of July. But the clock is ticking also on the whole plan. You heard there from Yvette Cooper, some excellent questioning from you both of her on their plans to try and stop the small boats crossing. And what better reminder than this dreadful tragedy overnight in the Channel, because Labour say they will axe the Rwanda plan even if it works. But I thought her answer to Isabel was fascinating, saying there we will look at anything that works when asked about a different form of offshore processing, because something's got to be done. You've got to find a way of deterring and stopping these poor people spending thousands of pounds to people traffickers on the promise of a better life in the UK. They've got to be shown that if you come here illegally, you will be sent somewhere else. That's the idea of the plan. The government has gone with Rwanda, and it hasn't worked so far. We're 2 years in, hundreds of thousands of pounds spent, but as of last night, and shortly, it will become law. It got through both the Commons and the Lords.
Christopher, thank you. We will leave it there. We will, with the time at 6 minutes past 9, we will indulge a bit more in whatever St George's Day celebrations are going on around the country. Now, we've got Stephen and Ellie. They are out and about. They're in Dartford today to celebrate England's patron saint. Guys, so tell us, what is that lovely background behind you there? And happy St George's Day.
Yeah, happy St George's Day. Well, you know what, it's GB News, so we thought we'd start the day in a pub, because that's always the best thing to do. Look, Dartford's really going to be celebrating today, along with Gravesend actually nearby. And thankfully, the Bull and Vic, which actually is 300 years old. George I was on the throne.
Which is very fitting.
It is fitting when this pub opened. And so, as you can see, they've decked it out. It's all got everything ready to roll. The Union Jack flying in here. We've got the St George's Cross outside, of course, so everything's just ready to go for what is going to be a huge day of celebration here. And why shouldn't we celebrate being English?
So it all is ramping up to around lunchtime, when there's going to be 700 school children alongside community groups and charities. They're going to be parading behind a large model of St George on his dragon, who's going to be leading that parade from the Civic Centre, which is just down there, along the High Street, which we are on now, all the way up to the bandstand. And we hear that it's going to be a real celebration with lots of music and
Morris dancers.
Morris dancers, yes. And the children have been busy making papier-mâché shields and papier-mâché dragons. So they're all going to be bringing them along on the parade as well, which will be great.
And as you can tell, we've dressed for the occasion.
Of course.
As close to red and white as we could sort of manage in this sort of thing. So we're going to have a great day here. We're having a fantastic time. Ellie's going to grab a drink in a minute. And we're going to celebrate with the people of Dartford all through the day here on GB News.
Good stuff. You got the memo on the outfits. I love it. Whilst we've got you, we've been talking about the Trick Awards. Of course, we won last year, didn't we, for our breakfast programme. Eamonn nominated for Best News Presenter again this year. And our breakfast programme also nominated again in the news category. So we thought we'd include you in our excitement and our sort of reflections on last year as well, whilst we've got you, and you know, what it means to you to get the votes of our viewers and listeners.
It's so wonderful to be nominated again, isn't it? Because last year was just such a fabulous event. We really, really enjoyed it. And what a shock and surprise and just wonderful news it was when Breakfast won the programme, when Farage won Best News Presenter. So it was just an amazing night last year, wasn't it? To celebrate everything that is GB News.
Yeah, and of course, as we keep saying, this is one of the few awards in our industry where it's all driven by what you vote for. And that's what matters to us. I have to say, I was gobsmacked last year. But I wasn't expecting it. It's just absolutely fantastic. So let's hope we can make it a double.
Well, if we can't make it a double, it's up to you, viewers and listeners. And here's what you do. You head to poll-trick.org.uk, right?
Yes.
So that's the official website, if we get rid of that sign there. So you go to poll-trick.org.uk, and those are your GB News options, all available for your votes, and hopefully bring home an award or two in the process come the awards ceremony.
Yeah, we want to make that a double, guys. Thanks in advance for anybody who takes the time to vote. We do appreciate it. Right, Britain's newsroom is coming up, 9:30. Andrew Pearce and Carol Malone back by popular demand. Good morning, you two. What a busy programme you had yesterday.
We certainly did. It's a busy one today, too.
Yeah.
We're talking about, is there any comeback for Hugh Edwards? He's finally gone, having been off the BBC since, July, but still on his £435,000 a year salary.
Hugely embarrassing for the BBC, actually, this amount of money. I mean, licence payers paying this for a guy who's actually at home doing nothing. And we're also going to be talking, there's a story in the Mail today about old age is getting older. It's at what age you think... I mean, you know,
Carol would know. She would know.
With friends like you, Andrew.
Who said we're friends?
Yeah. So, people, what do you think old age is? What age would you say old age?
Oh, listen, I thought 50 was
I think 50 is the I do think 50 is the turning point. I think 50
We see,
is when
you would say that at your age, but the interesting thing here is that the older you get, the older you see old age down the road.
You are absolutely right. I'll be 65 this year, and honestly, I feel, well, I'm physically incapacitated at the minute, but mentally or whatever it is, absolutely, I think as if I'm 25.
Do you know, Eamonn, when my mum was 74, she used to refer to the older people that should say that old girl down the road. I say, where do you think you are, Ma? You're 74.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I can still remember my grandma, and she would always just seem old to me, because she always, when she came to the house, kept her coat on and a hat on.
Yes, they always had a hat.
And my grandparents had a perm from sort of 60. They all had the false teeth.
They did.
But now at 75 is what pensioners consider officially, in Germany anyway, to be old age. I think that's probably about fair enough. Yeah, it's about fair enough.
Yeah, I think also the way we look after and look towards old people, for instance, putting old people with old people, I think is a bad idea.
It's a terrible idea.
I think you should be with your friends. I think you should be allowed to move into somewhere with people who are a circle, young people, grandchildren, you know, a complete variety of people. Because you're old, you're right, my mother was exactly the same. My mother was 94 when she died, right? And she's saying, I'm not going there. A lot of old people in there.
You know, it's so funny.
You know, I think if I'm off work for a week and I don't read the papers, and I don't, I come back and it's really hard for me to pull myself together. And I think when you're older, that's what happens if you're not stimulated.
Yeah. But somebody who is old at 81 is the President of the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, he
not,
could be 96.
He's not the best example, I was going to say.
But it's great that older people run for a high office because they've got all that experience. But
I think
not
it's
in
too
his
old.
case.
I think personally there should be a cap on running the country.
You're right.
Probably. What age would we cap it at?
Trump's 77.
Well, I think
but he doesn't look it, and he doesn't behave it.
He was falling asleep in court last week.
He did that on purpose.
Well, he would, because...
That was for show. That was for show.
Maybe, yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
He's just thinking, I can't be bothered with this boring judge.
Well, I tell you, no one's going to fall asleep in your show. 15 minutes to go, 9:30. We're looking forward to it. Thanks very much, you two.
I think Trump has all those alleged girlfriends to keep him.
That keeps him young. You're only as old as the woman you feel.
That's a factor. Yes, as old as the girl you feel, or in my case, as old as the... No, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Moving on.
You'll feel good if you win our Great British Giveaway competition. It is a gem. Have a look.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Look, here we are on St George's Day. We're going to be back right after the break. We will have the chairman of the Royal Society of St George. Find out all about that and the man himself right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In every corner of the world, people celebrate English tradition and values as members of the Royal Society of St George. Yet here in England, branches are closing as membership dwindles.
I feel that in this country, St George is all but dead and buried.
Until recently, Stephen Warden from Wigston was president of the Leicestershire branch. Despite spending £1,500 of his own money advertising, he couldn't find enough members to keep it running.
I did everything humanly possible to get new members into the branch from the local environment, but they were just not interested in joining.
He thinks changing demographics and declining interest in the Society's values contributed to disappearing membership. But he also blames political leadership at national and local levels. Stephen claims his proposal for a St George's Day parade was repeatedly rejected by Leicester City Council over 10 years. A celebration is planned for St George's Day, but like most cities and towns, no parade will pass through the streets. A Leicester City Council spokesperson said, Leicester's annual celebrations of St George's Day have been organised and funded by the City Council for many decades, and they remain an important part of the city's festival calendar. Some in Leicester say they would like to see more done to celebrate England's patron saint.
I think it's a sign of patriotism. I think it helps the country. We celebrate a lot of religious festivals here.
People forget, I think, what is important to England.
Maybe it's been sort of jumped onto with the wrong crowd, but I think nowadays it's just completely different.
Back in Wigston, St George's Cross flies above Stephen's home.
It makes me feel good because I know at least I've not forgotten St George if everybody else has.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
So all morning we have been speaking about St George's Day, April the 23rd, and the celebration of our patron saint.
Well, happy St George's Day to you. If you're English, what are you doing to celebrate that? We, the station here, GB News, will be marking it throughout the day, so get in touch with us and let us know. gbnews.com/have your say. How important is today? In the studio, the chairman of the Royal Society of St George, that's Nick Dutt. Congratulations on St George's Day.
Thank you very much, and happy St George's Day to you and all the listeners, all the viewers.
What does it mean to you, Nick? What are you going to do today, for instance?
I'm attending an event in London for a society that celebrates St George's Day. But as a society, over the last few days, we've done a number of things. So a number of the branches around the country have held events to celebrate St George's Day. Last Saturday, we laid a wreath at the tomb of the Cenotaph and the Tomb of the Unknown Warrior in Westminster Abbey, and we had a march past of 400 cadets. So that was the main society celebration.
And dare I say, that's sort of passed under the radar, probably, for most people. And they sound like exactly the sort of things we ought to be doing as a country today. Eamonn's campaigning for us to have a bank holiday like the Irish do. Eamonn would come in on the 17th of March, head to toe, dressed in green, and doesn't understand why we English are so... I think it's self-deprecation, but he thinks it's just sort of, snobbery or... reticence to...
it's very hard to explain to somebody who's Irish, who celebrates their national day, why people in England don't have the same enthusiasm. That's the thing.
And I struggle with that. I absolutely agree. I think we should celebrate it. We should celebrate what unites us rather than what divides us.
Definitely, yeah.
And I agree. I think, and thanks to your channel, the Cenotaph event was broadcast, and we've this year seem to have a much bigger awareness of St George's Day.
OK, you look at your society, for instance. What's your membership like? What's your reach like?
At the moment, about 5,000 members.
Yeah.
And to be fair, based on...
Not bad.
It's not bad. During the wars, it was probably 50,000. But over the last decade or so, there have been certain headwinds that certainly patriotism has been conflated with nationalism, as extreme organisations took the flag, took St George, and we're trying to fight to get that back.
Nationalism or with football fans? I mean, that's where I see the flag most of the time, during the World Cups.
But there is a concern. I've certainly gone to friends of mine and said, I'm national chairman of the Royal Society of St George. We take a step back. There's that concern about your where you stand, I guess. But it's made worse now as well because of the underlying trends, shall we say, in universities and schools to push a narrative that undermines all our history, what we've ever done. Now, yes, there are some bad things, but we've done good things. There's some great people, inventors, playwrights, actors, artists, so on, that we should be celebrating.
Yeah, you see, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think one of the great things the Irish do is that they have music, they have dance, they have acting in this, and most of all, everything is oiled by alcohol. Absolutely.
Well, we do that.
So I suggest, yes, we might have some of that as well.
It's a party day from start to finish, or it can be, and it's a great thing for uniting families coming together and whatever. I think you've got to work on the social side of it all. As well.
Oh, don't worry, we are.
Yeah.
But I lived in the UAE for 15 years.
Yeah.
What they do on their National Day is flags everywhere and go over the top. And I think we should do that. Celebrate who we are. Celebrate that history, the ideals, the traditions.
A historian was telling us earlier that St George is so popular. He's also the patron saint of Georgia and indeed Russia and a number of other countries as well. So what is it about George that makes him such a popular saint?
It's his dragon.
Well, wasn't that introduced later?
That was introduced later, yes. It's his image as for valour, for courage. He was a martyr, so he was taken on by in about 1350 as our patron saint. But as you say, he's patron saint of many other countries. He's patron saint of the Scouts as well.
Oh right.
We've had people in the studio yesterday and today who basically say they were born in England, but their parents were from, say, Africa, or their parents were from Scotland or whatever, and they feel that they can't give the allegiance. I'm not really sure what they mean by that, but a lot of them are quite ashamed of the legacy that England has in the world. Just briefly, what would you say about that?
Well, I disagree. My grandfather came from India back in the early 1900s. I was born here. I'm proud of this country. I'm proud of what we've achieved. Yes, there are things we need to learn from, but there's some great things there as well. And it is disappointing when people come here, make their home here, and then spend their time degrading it. And I think that takes away, for the younger generation, the foundations of who we are, and that makes it very difficult to build on.
Yeah. Well, look, you have a great day with your ceremony today. Thanks for coming in today. Happy St George's Day from us to you, and for you watching and listening at home as well.
And thank you to all of you who've been sending all your details about how you're going to be spending today, buying red roses, going to the pub to drink a pint, or indeed just reflecting on the wonderful country that we are living in. Thanks for your contributions. Thanks for your company this morning. We'll be back bright and early from 6 o'clock tomorrow.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Many of us will see some decent sunshine today, although in the southeast here there is quite a bit of cloud and also some drizzly rain. This pushing in across eastern parts of England this morning, feeding into parts of East Anglia and towards London and Kent as we head towards the afternoon. Some showery outbreaks across parts of the southwest, otherwise lots of places having a dry day, particularly across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of sunshine and blue skies here. A bit of a west-east split in our temperatures in the east. Pretty cool at times, temperatures just about getting into double figures. Milder or warmer further west with lots of places in the mid, possibly even high teens. Any drizzly rain across parts of the southeast will clear away as we go through this evening, leaving a largely dry night and largely clear skies too. As a result, with the clear skies and some cold air making its way across the country, we are going to see temperatures taking a bit of a dip. So there will be a bit of frost around first thing tomorrow morning, particularly where we have some lengthy clear skies and away from eastern parts which are going to be a bit blustery as we go into tomorrow. So watch out for some blustery winds in the east and also some fairly frequent showers which could turn a bit heavy across parts of East Anglia and perhaps towards Kent. Elsewhere, again, lots of fine sunny weather around, just 1 or 2 showers to watch out for, but plenty of blue skies yet again. Temperatures a little bit lower for many of us, so really feeling a bit cool considering it's the middle of spring. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Carol Malone again.
Hello.
Hugh Edwards finally leaving the BBC. We're going to see how much he's been paid since he was taken off air.
He's been on full salary. He gets 439 grand. Yeah, highest paid newsreader on the BBC.
Was he forced out? And when is old? Very good question for Carol Malone to
hello,
answer.
there's the pot calling the kettle.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced trains again today between Airdrie and Bathgate for emergency engineering works. On Merseyside, Balliol Road in Bootle remains closed eastbound off the A565 Derby Road after a spillage yesterday afternoon. On the M54 in Shropshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where a car's overturned between junctions 4 and 3 from Shifnal to Albrighton. There are queues from junction 5 at Telford and it's slow westbound past the scene. Also in Shropshire, the A5 is partly blocked each way by an accident at the A49 at Preston Island, causing delays. On the M4 in Port Talbot, there are westbound queues after an accident between junctions 42 and 43 from the east of Swansea to Llandarcy. On the M4 in Swansea, there's a lane closed for emergency barrier repairs on the westbound exit at junction 44 at Llansamlet, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
There is a kind of a Mediterranean side to that as well, because my mother came from that side, you know, a big family. And I think there is that sense of community where family is kind of key. And I think that's really kind of what we sort of try and continue, really. I mean, certainly with children and stuff like that, you know, Sunday lunches were always, you know, the big thing.
Yeah, really. But if you go down the Old Kent Road today...
Very different. Very different, yeah. And that was quite some time ago as well, because we were very close to where the Thomas à Becket was.
Yeah, I know, the boxing upstairs and all the rest of it. Yep.
And I did go down there not so long ago, actually, and it really is very, very different. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. I think we have a different view of things.
Most people in London, Nicky, don't even know the names of the next-door neighbours.
No, true.
We've